Chapter 1620. He leaped onto the dragon god's skeleton. There were a total of 5 dragon bones, and Suyu grabbed the one in the middle. This section of the dragon's spine was the longest and the most complete. The dragon marrow it emitted was also the richest. Without hesitation, he grabbed it in his palm. Suyu, what are you doing? Didn't you say we would split it according to the rules? Bai Hua Fairy yelled and leapt onto the dragon's skeleton. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the dragon bone in the middle was the best. Then, Tuobalun, Lu Tianji, and Li Yu arrived one after another. They each took a piece of dragon skeleton, staring daggers at each other. The excavation results of the dragon skeleton were the most important part. How to split it? Suyu, according to the agreement, we will split it 3-3, Bai Hua Fairy said. You are breaking the rules by taking it by force now. Suyu shrugged, not letting go of the dragon skeleton. Just now, I think you jumped on me too, but I was one step closer. Bai Hua Fairy snorted and tried to change the topic. Anyway, the dragon soul has been destroyed, everything will be distributed according to the agreement. Lu Tianji and I will each get 30%, the two of you will each get 20%. Haha, ridiculous. Tuobalun laughed mockingly. Why do you each get 30%, while the two of us can only get 40%? Bai Hua Fairy said, that was the agreement. Then did we agree that Suyu would only destroy the dragon soul by himself? Tuobalun laughed mockingly. Destroying the dragon soul was all Suyu's credit. Where did you get the thick skin to divide it according to the agreement? His words made Bai Hua Fairy's face flush. Indeed, it was almost because of Suyu's last strike that the sword soul was destroyed. At that time, she, Tuobalun, Li Yu, and the others had all retreated from the area where the palm was, and it was Suyu who destroyed the dragon soul by himself. In terms of credit, Suyu took all the credit. Bai Hua Fairy asked, what about you? Isn't it the same? What did you do? Tuobalun laughed mysteriously. Haha, I really didn't do anything, so I suggest that more than 90% of the dragon bones be given to Suyu. As soon as he said that, both Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy scowled. Of course, Tuobalun wasn't so kind as to fight for Suyu's benefits. He wanted to put most of the dragon bones under Suyu's name, then use the agreement between him and Suyu to get half of them. Tuobalun, I admit that Suyu has made a great contribution, but if he takes away most of the resources just like that, wouldn't our years of hard work be for naught? Bai Hua Fairy said unwillingly. Tuobalun leisurely shook his head. That's why I left you 10%. Only 10%? That was not even enough money for hard work. Lu Tianji pondered for a while, then said, plans cannot keep up with changes. Brother Su killed the dragon soul alone. If we continue to follow the previous agreement, it would indeed be unfair. However, if we were to give you the majority of the dragon bones, it would also be unfair to us. From discovering this place to planning and preparing, we have spent a great deal of effort and paid a great price. How about this, Bai Hua Fairy? Tuobalun and I will each get 20%, while Brother Su gets 40%. Lu Tianji suggested. Tuobalun raised his brows and refused to agree, but Suyu had already agreed. Sure. If they really couldn't reach an agreement, the two sides would definitely fight. If Lu Tianji, Bai Hua Fairy and Li Yu joined forces, Suyu and Tuobalun would not be able to contend against them. Being able to monopolize 40% was not bad at all. Suyu did not hesitate and chose 2 pieces of dragon bones, including the best one. Lu Tianji and the other 2 each took a piece. Just like that, the distribution of the dragon cave ruins was complete. This trip is over, let's part ways here. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy both looked at Suyu, their expressions complicated. They secretly exchanged glances with each other, both of them feeling sorry for Suyu. Cooperating with Tuobalun would probably not end well for him. After they left, Tuobalun would definitely bare his fangs. Wait. However, Tuobalun took a step forward and blocked their way. Bai Hua Fairy squinted her eyes. What's the matter? Tuobalun laughed mockingly. Nothing much, just a little dissatisfied with the distribution of the dragon bones. Brother Tuoba, the distribution between us has been completed as agreed. What's left is between you and Brother Su. Why are you blocking our way? Lu Tianji asked calmly. Humph. Lu Tianji, oh Lu Tianji, you have incredible foresight. Why don't you try divination and see what my intention is? Tuobaluan's mocking smile deepened. Hearing that, Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji's expressions darkened. Could it be that Tuobaluan not only dared to attack Su Yu, but also them? Uncle, is everything ready? Tuobaluan lightly shouted as he retreated from one of the dragon fingers back to the edge. Swish! A gray shadow appeared, holding 4 snow-white jade talismans in his hands. On each of the 4 dragon fingers, there was an additional jade talisman. The gray shadow crushed the 3 talismans in his palm, and correspondingly, the talismans on the 3 dragon fingers also immediately bursting out an astonishing power, completely shattering the originally fragile dragon fingers, leaving behind a dangerous void space. In the blink of an eye, 3 dragon fingers were destroyed, leaving only one that led to the outside world. If this one was also destroyed, they would be trapped in the palm of the dragon's claws forever. Stop! If anyone dares to try to force their way in, immediately destroy the last remaining dragon finger so that you will never be able to come out. Tuobaluan's ferocious face was revealed as he shouted fiercely. Bai Hua Fairy was trembling with anger. Even in her dreams, she never thought that Tuobaluan would dare to attack them. Lu Tianji calmly asked, Tuobaluan, what do you want? Tuobaluan laughed. Do you still need to ask? Of course it's the dragon bones, and everything that you have obtained in the cave of 10,000 dragons. His greedy eyes scanned through everyone's sword-shaped storage rings, unable to contain his excitement. Bai Hua Fairy angrily said, Tuobaluan, aren't you afraid? Lu Tianji and I both died in the cave of 10,000 dragons, only you returned alive. Do you think the Bai Hua family and the Lu family will let this go? If you don't want to cause more trouble, immediately. Humph. I only need to tell your families that when you were excavating the dragon cave, you were discovered by Jianxian's people. The 2 of you couldn't escape in time and died in their hands. Do you think your families have the guts to ask Jianxian about the truth? Tuobaluan recklessly laughed. Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji's faces darkened. The answer was clear, they wouldn't. The Bai Hua family and the Lu family would never dare to admit that they were plotting against the dragon cave. If you want to live, there is only one way. Tuobaluan licked his lips, his face full of confidence. The 4 of you give me all your sword-shaped storage rings, and I will consider letting you go. The 4 of them didn't look any better. Even if they gave the sword-shaped storage rings to Tuobaluan, he still wouldn't keep his promise and let them go. But did they have a choice? Lu Tianji took off the storage rings and threw them on the dragon's finger, saying, Tuobaluan, think twice before you act. Bai Hua Fairy also took off the storage rings and threw them on the dragon's finger. Li Yu and Su Yu did the same, both choosing to obey. Xiao, the gray shadow flew over, waved his sleeves, and took away all 4 sword-shaped storage rings. Seeing this, Tuobaluan grinned hideously. Unfortunately, I have thought it through, and I will never let you go. Pop! The gray shadow crushed the last jade talisman, and the dragon's finger exploded. Just like that, the last remaining space that connected the outside world turned into nothingness. Tuobaluan. Bai Hua Fairy gritted her teeth, making a creaking sound. Lu Tianji heaved a long sigh, helplessly closing his eyes. The result was as expected. Ha ha ha, Lu Tianji, Bai Hua Fairy, the dragon cave that you spent so much time and effort to excavate will all belong to me. Tuobaluan held the 4 sword-shaped storage rings in his hands, extremely excited. Just the marrow of this divine dragon can help me break through to the hidden gate of the Level 2 Cavern World Senior. Not to mention, there are many good treasures in these 4 storage rings. He took out one of Su Yu's and sneered. You didn't expect this, did you? The petrifying dragon bone that you hid will eventually belong to me. His arrogant attitude made Bai Hua Fairy's teeth itch, but she couldn't do anything about it. But Su Yu himself was silent. Tuobaluan laughed mockingly. Your things, I will take them all. He opened Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy's storage rings one by one, and took out the items inside. Starlight grass, spiritual objects of the world, all kinds of rare materials, and of course, the most precious dragon bone, were all taken out one by one and transferred into Tuobaluan's storage ring. When he finally opened Su Yu's storage ring, he chuckled. I wonder what other good stuff you have besides the 2 pieces of dragon bones and the petrified dragon bones. It's a pity that they have all gone to me, Tuobaluan. However, when he scanned with his soul, he couldn't help but stiffen on the spot. After a while, he came back to his senses and stuttered. Where are the things? Where are the things inside? The sword-shaped storage ring was empty, not even a blade of grass. As for the so-called stone dragon bone sword and the 2 dragon bones, they were nowhere to be seen. Tuobaluan raised his stiff face and shouted in a stern voice, Where are the things? I clearly saw you put the petrifying dragon bone and the remains into the storage ring. In the cave of 10,000 dragons, other space storage devices were restricted and could not be opened. Only Jian Xian's special sword-shaped storage device could be opened in the cave of 10,000 dragons. Su Yu could not have hidden it in his personal storage device. But, in the sword-shaped storage device, not only did it not contain those 2 items, there was nothing else. Hearing that, Su Yu raised his eyes and said indifferently, Oh, I forgot to tell you, I took a sword-shaped storage device from the Murong tribesman you killed, so I actually have 2 of them. He flipped his palm and took out another sword-shaped storage device. The things you mentioned are all in here, but unfortunately, before I could throw them out, you blew up the bridge, so now I can't give them to you even if I wanted to, sigh. Everyone was shocked. Su Yu had held back. Tuobaluan was furious. You tricked me? Chapter 16:21. Tuobaluan clenched his fists and stared at Su Yu, his face full of murderous intent. I should have killed you. Unfortunately, you didn't. Su Yu shrugged and teased. Why don't Brother Tuoba come over and kill me? Ha ha ha. Bai Hua Fairy was laughing so hard that she was rocking back and forth. Her previous anger had been swept away. Tuobaluan's blood rushed to his head, his whole body trembling. He gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. Su, you will be trapped on this island forever, until you die. He flicked his sleeves and left the Blood Mountain with the gray shadow, sealing the secret passage in the Blood Mountain. That way, no one in the world would know that there was a hidden dragon cave under the Blood Mountain. No one would know that there were 4 people trapped in the dragon cave. When Tuobaluan left, Bai Hua Fairy stopped laughing, her face gradually became solemn. This place had become an isolated island, to be trapped here forever, how could she not be solemn? Liu calmly examined the area around the palm print, then shook her head. There is no way out, it is all nothingness nearby. Unless you have an emperor-level body, you will not be able to climb back up if you fall in there, there is no exception. It was different from the nothingness in the stomach of the Tao Tai. The nothingness of the absolute beginning realm was true nothingness, no life, no death. Once you fall in there, it would be difficult to return until you were crushed into dust by time, becoming a part of the nothingness. Now, they were really trapped. Even if someone from the outside world came to their rescue, they would not be able to help. Lu Tianji took out a silver scroll, his hands moving like a phantom, quickly divining their fate. Bai Hua Fairy and Li Yu both looked at him. The only hope was Lu Tianji. If he could find a way out, death on all sides, a hopeless situation. Lu Tianji put down the silver scroll, sighing dejectedly. In the divination, their fate was to be trapped here forever. No matter where they went, there was no hope. Even Lu Tianji was helpless. Bai Hua Fairy's eyes dimmed, sitting on the ground in exhaustion. Li Yu was also speechless, Her cold and beautiful face was filled with sorrow. No one knew what she was thinking. When they were hopeless, Suyu got up and went to the divine dragon's remains. After the battle with the dragon's soul, the surroundings were all ruins. He walked and stopped, looking around. Until the very last moment, Suyu would never believe in the so-called destiny. Unfortunately, when the divine dragon was buried here, he did not have time to leave behind more relic. Apart from his remains and remnant soul, there was almost nothing else. Wait a minute. All of a sudden, a bright spark flashed in the depths of Suyu's mind. Remnant soul. The existence of a remnant soul must be sustained by some kind of power, right? That divine dragon's remnant soul had survived until now. There must be something that continuously provided him with energy. Furthermore, every time the remnant soul was injured, it could instantly recover. It would be strange if there was no such thing. Suyu shook his sleeves and sent a large piece of the ruins flying. His eyes were like lightning as he searched through the ruins. His strange actions made by Hua Fairy a bit curious, but to them who were already dead, it didn't interest them at all. After the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn, a faint chuckle fell into everyone's ears. Finally found it. When the crowd looked over, they saw Suyu holding a chessboard in his hand. They all recognized the chessboard. It was the chessboard that the dragon's soul had played when they arrived. Everyone's eyes lit up. Lu Tianji sensed something and took out the silver scroll again. The messy lines on it automatically changed. Sword pointing at the sky? Lu Tianji said in surprise. Unbelievable! The sword pointing at the sky has the intention of defying heaven and changing fate. Only the world's great evil, and great rebellious people can display such a divination. But all of them are infamous villains. If it's Suyu, a mere 4th realm mortal fairy, how could he be that kind of existence? But no matter what, fate had indeed changed because of Suyu's relentless digging. Everyone quickly gathered around and carefully examined the chessboard. Suyu, did you find anything? Bai Hua Fairy was overwhelmed with emotions, like a drowning person who had grabbed onto a life-saving rope. She asked nervously. Suyu nodded. I found something. He looked at the chessboard. It was a game in progress. It was Bai Feng's turn to make a move. Suyu tapped casually, and a white chess piece landed on the board. In an instant, a soft sigh that made their hair stand on end came from behind them. Sigh, you guys still found it. Turning around, they saw an elegant figure in white standing in front of them. It was none other than the dragon soul that had been defeated. It was not dead. Bai Hua Fairy, Li Yu, and Lu Tianji felt as if they were facing a great enemy. They could not help but feel fearful as they recalled his terrifying sword moves. Don't worry, since you have started the game, you have accepted my second test. The dragon soul had no intention of attacking. Bai Hua Fairy said, Test? But in our current situation, so what if we pass the test? The dragon soul said, Don't worry, I have left a great path rules in the game, enough to send you out of this place. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. Suyu's eyes flickered. The test you speak of, what exactly is it? The dragon soul pointed to the chessboard. Of course, it's a game of chess. He casually drew out a few whiffs of dragon energy and condensed them into a stone table and a stone chair. As he invited Suyu and the others to take a seat, he explained, This chess game is a dead end. Even though the white side has the majority of the pieces, in the end, the black side will win because the black side is too strong. Listening to his explanation, Suyu could not help but imagine the scene of many divine dragons besieging the epic-making dragon, only to be slaughtered by the epic-making dragon. Before I died, my obsession was not extinguished, hoping to find a way to break the game. Unfortunately, I have painstakingly studied it for countless years, only to be defeated again and again. At most, it can only be a draw. If you can let the white side win one game, I can activate the power of the Great Path rules in the game and send you out. At the same time, you can also practice the Yellow Dragon Sword technique. Hearing this, everyone was excited. The Dragon Soul's 3 sword techniques were infinitely powerful, how could they not desire it? Let me try. Bai Hua Fairy was the most agile. Sitting on the white side, she immediately placed herself on the chessboard, thinking of countermeasures. She was smart and nimble, and made a few clever moves, which made the Dragon Soul show a look of approval. However, after just 10 steps, Bai Hua Fairy was already swept away by the powerful black pieces and was instantly defeated. The Dragon Soul shook its head regretfully. Not yet. Let me try too. Liu stepped up. As calm and collected as she was on the white side, she displayed an unexpectedly fierce aura. The white side attacked fiercely, easily wiping out a large number of black pieces, like a hot knife through butter. The Dragon Soul's eyes lit up slightly, but soon after, when the powerful black pieces destroyed all the advantages of the white pieces, it dimmed again. Not bad, but sigh. Let me try. Lu Tianji's face was brimming with confidence. As someone who achieved his path through divination, he was best at the art of flexibility. And the art of chess was precisely the art of flexibility. As soon as he started, he immediately displayed a completely different temperament from the previous 2, neither fast nor slow, calm and unruffled. From the arrangement of the white pieces to the formation, there was nothing that was not mysterious. The Dragon Soul's face showed a hint of anticipation, and even a slight nervousness could be seen. After the arrangements were made, the black and white sides quickly clashed. From the beginning, the white pieces were at an absolute advantage. With all kinds of advantageous arrangements, they immediately defeated the black pieces. At the same time, the white pieces were ever-changing, and once they were attacked, they were flexible and varied, minimizing casualties. This went on for a full 6 hours. The excitement in the Dragon Soul's eyes became more and more intense. He would only occasionally be like this in a protracted battle like this. What did this mean? It meant that Lu Tianji was likely to achieve a draw or even victory. The most crucial moment is here. The Dragon Soul stared at the king-like black piece in the center. As soon as the black pieces made their move, a large number of white pieces were unsurprisingly killed. However, Lu Tianji did not lose because of this, but was prepared for the second wave of siege. Unfortunately, the black pieces were too strong, and once again wiped out a large number. The white pieces were not obstructed by the ordinary black pieces, and continuously created new white pieces, preparing for the third wave of siege. In this way, the black pieces in the center kept wiping out the white pieces. But the white pieces kept increasing. The 2 sides were in a stalemate, evenly matched. Lu Tianji's palm shook, and a trace of blood flowed down from his wrist. He tiredly spat out 2 words, a draw. The Dragon Soul's scorching light instantly dimmed. He forced a smile and comforted, "Young man, it is not easy to use divination to this extent." Not bad. Lu Tianji smiled bitterly. If he could not do it, it seemed that their fates had not been completely reversed, and it was still a dead end. Looks like I am the only one left. Su Yu walked over and sat calmly in front of the chessboard. The Dragon Soul said, "Let's begin." Su Yu nodded and began to play chess. He placed the pieces extremely quickly, almost without any thought, and continuously placed the pieces. The Dragon Soul frowned slightly. To be honest, he had the highest expectations for Su Yu. Because Su Yu was the only one who had withstood the 3 strokes of the Yellow Dragon Sword technique. But in terms of chess, the Dragon Soul could see that Su Yu's techniques were rusty, and he was not good at chess. The chess moves he made were also immature, without any order to speak of. Most importantly, he had a casual attitude. He was a little displeased and reminded, "This is where my obsession lies. If you have any respect, please play seriously." But at this moment, Su Yu seemed to be in a meditative state, minding his own business as he quickly placed the pieces. The Dragon Soul was a little angry and said, "Young man, your companion has lost his chance. If you continue like this, don't blame me for disqualifying you." Suyu continued to do as he pleased, as if he could not hear the voices of the outside world. Bai Hua Fairy wrinkled her nose. What is this guy doing? Even though I did not pin my hopes on him, he shouldn't be taking it so lightly, right? Even though I know a little about chess, I can see that he knows nothing about chess. At first, Lu Tianji thought that Su Yu's seemingly chaotic layout might have some order to it, but after watching for a while, he could not help but sigh and shake his head. Li Yu, on the other hand, stared at the chessboard, lost in thought. That person's eyes when he was focused reminded her of someone. Enough! The dragon's soul was slightly angry and stood up. Your qualification for the test has been disqualified, leave the chessboard. But Suyu was still sitting in front of the chessboard. But at this moment, he finally stopped and looked up with a questioning look. What did you say just now? The dragon's soul laughed in anger, too lazy to care, and kept the chessboard. Chapter 1622. The seemingly scattered white pieces, at that moment, as the last white piece landed, revealed a mysterious situation. The disorderly white pieces were stacked layer upon layer, interspersing the entire chess game. They did not attack the black pieces fiercely like Li Yu, nor were they as cautious as Lu Tianji, but they were scattered all over the place. When the black and white pieces fought head-on, the unexpected change caused the dragon's soul to be extremely shocked. The white pieces did not immediately kill the black pieces, and some of them were even killed by the black pieces. But the scattered white pieces seemed to be pulled up by a thread, constantly shrinking, and the white pieces that were killed seemed to have been deliberately arranged in half. After they were killed, it was even more beneficial for the white pieces to shrink as a whole. The dragon's soul's eyes shone brightly as he stared unblinkingly at the chessboard. He exclaimed in astonishment, "Every single one of the chess pieces has a mystery to it. There are 320 white chess pieces on the board, but not a single one is extra." He had played chess for countless years, but had never played such a mysterious chess game. The seemingly messy white chess pieces actually contained the power to reverse heaven and earth. Not long after, a shocking scene appeared. The white pieces contracted as a whole, forcing all the black pieces into a corner, making them unable to move. The powerful central black piece moved left and right, wanting to rush out again, but it was blocked by its own black pieces everywhere, unable to leave. Just like that, the central black piece and the ordinary black pieces were forced to the corner. Without a doubt, the final victor was the white side. Suyu said calmly, "There is no enemy without a weakness in the world, and the central black piece is the same. It can only attack the white pieces and cannot attack the black pieces. This is the chess game's rule, and it is also the central black piece's only weakness. If that is the case, why not make use of the black pieces?" The dragon's soul seemed to have awakened from a dream, murmuring, "Defeating the enemy, I have played chess for countless years, but I never thought of this." He could not hide the excitement in his expression, but also the lingering disappointment. "So, we still had a chance of winning back then, but we did not meet a compatriot like you." He grabbed the chessboard and crushed it. A transparent dragon horn fell into his palm. He stared deeply at Suyu. "Human, my obsession is gone, and I am about to dissipate. According to the agreement, the yellow dragon sword technique is yours." Suyu took it and felt a surge of majestic dragon power, which contained a great path law. By using this great Tao law, you will be able to break through the seal of the void and arrive at the nearby region. The dragon's soul waved its hand, and the laws of the great Tao within its transparent dragon horn were unleashed, creating a passageway out of thin air. Outside the passage, a familiar aura came from the outside world. "Let's go." The dragon's soul waved his sleeves, and Suyu and the others were drawn into it. Meanwhile, the dragon's soul gradually dissipated. In the end, it turned into sparkling and translucent soul fragments and completely disappeared. The aura from the outside world surged in, and what entered everyone's eyes was actually the entrance they had used to enter the myriad dragon cave. More and more people were rushing over, preparing to leave the cave of 10,000 dragons. He actually returned to this place in a single step. Everyone heaved a long sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Except for Lu Tianji. He stared at Su Yu with a complicated look in his eyes. He believed that he had achieved the path through divination and had the ability to predict the future. However, he couldn't see through the chess game that Su Yu had set up until the last moment. How did you do it? Did you use some kind of unknown divine weapon to help? Lu Tianji asked. Su Yu said, "It was just a calculation and analysis." "Brother Lu, you worry too much. In terms of the power of calculation, 10 Lu Tianjis combined would not be a match for Su Yu. That chess game might be breathtaking to others, but for Su Yu, it only took a little effort and some mental power. Everyone, let's get out of here first. The cave of 10,000 dragons is almost over." Su Yu interrupted Lu Tianji's topic. There were not many people left in the cave of 10,000 dragons. Most of them had already left. Lu Tianji could not help but swallow his words. He nodded and followed the crowd out of the cave of 10,000 dragons. Back in the outside world, as expected, the people of the Sword Pavilion had arranged a heavy army to guard the exit to prevent the island forces from escaping with the sword-shaped storage devices. As soon as they appeared, they immediately attracted the attention of 2 young disciples of the Sword Pavilion, one of whom was Hong Lei. 3 level 3 Cavern World Venerables and 1 level 4 Mortal Fairy? This should be the last batch. Hong Lei released the powerful aura of a level 1 Cavern World Venerable, suppressing the 4 of them. "Line up for inspection. Stand aside," Hong Lei suddenly shouted. Su Yu stopped and looked around at the same time. He found that the people of the Shui family were already waiting outside, including Murong Qinqing. Unsurprisingly, he saw to Obaluan. He was talking and laughing with the people of the Feather God clan. His words were full of vigor and vigor. Sensing a few hostile eyes, he looked up. However, this one look almost made his face freeze, and he cried out involuntarily, "You! How did you get out?" Being surrounded by the void, even the divine warriors of heaven and earth could do nothing about it. How did they get out? Sensing the murderous intent of Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji, Tuobaluan's heart sank. After his expression changed continuously, he came to Hong Lei and said, "Lord Hong, I want to report the 3 of them." "Report what?" Hong Lei asked. Tuobaluan stared at them coldly, gritted his teeth and said, "I want to report them for excavating the remains of the divine dragon without permission." The forces of the nearby islands were all shocked. They all cast looks of surprise, envy and schadenfreude at the same time. The Sword Pavilion had never stipulated that the island forces were not allowed to excavate the remains of the divine dragon. However, his bloody methods had reminded them again and again that they should not get involved. Now that he had been reported in public, the Sword Pavilion would not let this matter rest. "Really?" Hong Lei was also shocked. He stared at Su Yu and the others fiercely. Su Yu's expression was calm and he said lightly, "If he says so, I want to report him for subverting the Sword Pavilion." Hong Lei's eyes narrowed into slits, bursting with bursts of light. He said leisurely, "He has voluntarily handed over a large number of dragon bones. The other part is in your hands, right?" "Humph." The corners of Tuobaluan's mouth curled up, revealing a sinister smile. Although the dragon bones were precious, they could not be taken away. It was better to hand them over to the Sword Pavilion to gain some benefit. For example, he had gained Hong Lei's favor. Of course, Hong Lei himself had secretly kept a portion of the dragon bones, and had profited immensely. Su Yu was not too surprised. The dragon marrow that could not be taken away would either be used on the spot in the cave of 10,000 dragons, or handed over to the Sword Pavilion. "I'm sorry, I still don't understand what he is saying. I have never seen any dragon bones," Su Yu said indifferently. Hong Lei stared at Su Yu. For some reason, This person's tone sounded a little familiar to him. Perhaps this person had seen it when he landed on one of the islands. Suppressing the surprise in his heart, Hong Lei stared at the 100-flower fairy, Lu Tianji and Li Yu. They were not like Su Yu, who could calmly look into the eyes of a level 1 cavern world senior, and all of them felt guilty. However, Su Yu had spoken first, so they could only bite the bullet and say, "We do not know about the so-called divine dragon remains." Hong Lei had seen countless people, so how could he not see the hidden guilt in the three's expressions? With a cold laugh, Hong Lei beckoned. "Come with me, let's talk somewhere else." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Hong Lei led them into a huge secret chamber. This was the secret chamber where the sword pavilion specially inspected sword-shaped storage rings. The security was extremely tight, and no one could leave before a thorough inspection was done. "Tuobaluan, you are the person involved, come in too." Before Hong Lei entered, he pointed at Tuobaluan. Tuobaluan smiled and strode in with a dignified appearance. As soon as they left, the people of the nearby island forces burst into an uproar. "Looks like Tuobaluan tricked Lu Tianji and the others." "Haha, Tuobaluan has always been ruthless. I think Lu Tianji and the others are in big trouble." "Even without Tuobaluan, they are still in big trouble. You should know that they have touched the divine dragon remains and touched the sword pavilion's reverse scale." Hearing this, everyone nodded tacitly. If they dared to touch the divine dragon's remains, once it was verified, with the sword pavilion's style, Lu Tianji and the others would undoubtedly die. That woman in black and the masked man are dead, they are just nameless pawns, but Lu Tianji and the 100-flower fairy are the top 3 powerhouses of the younger generation. It would be a pity for them to die so tragically in the hands of the sword pavilion. Hearing the many discussions, the hearts of the Shui family sank little by little. If Shui Yu went to the dragon cave and did not return, he would most likely encounter the sword pavilion and die tragically on the spot. They waited in silence for a moment to confirm that the entrance to the 10,000 dragon cave was closed, then silently left. "Sigh, this is fate." Shui Zhangji shook his sleeves, his back lonely. It was not easy to see the hope of the Shui family rising again, but at this moment, it was slapped back to the cold and cruel reality. Murong Qingqing sighed softly and followed the Shui family back to the Double Star Island. Inside the secret room, Hong Lei sat with a golden saber, leisurely sipping an unknown high-quality tea, his gaze indifferently sweeping across Su Yu and the others who stood in a row in front of him. "You should be well aware of how the sword pavilion will deal with those who excavate the divine dragon's remains, right?" Hong Lei scrutinized them. His tone was not without a hint of fierceness, causing the already nervous Lu Tianji and the others to feel even more uneasy. Fine beads of sweat appeared on Lu Tianji's forehead. He had secretly divined the future, the ups and downs of fate, and it was difficult to see the direction of the future. This was because Hong Lei was too powerful. His powerful aura affected the results of the divination. The 100-flower fairy also clenched her sleeves tightly, feeling extremely uneasy. Their original intention of excavating the divine dragon's remains was to refine the dragon marrow on the spot and never bring it out, in case it was discovered by the sword pavilion. Who would have thought that Tuobaluan would voluntarily offer up the dragon bones and spread the news of excavating the divine dragon's remains? Things were far out of her control. She felt like an ant being pinched in the palm of his hand. With just a thought from the Hong Lei before her, he could bury them here forever. No matter how many dreams they had, no matter how glorious their future was, they could not compare to a single thought from Hong Lei. The deep pressure made the 3 of them breathless. Chapter 16:23. Lu Tianji said cautiously, "My lord, we really didn't know about the divine dragon remains. I hope you can investigate this." Bai Hua Fairy lost her usual liveliness and said cautiously, "My lord, we were harvesting resources in the periphery according to the rules. We wouldn't dare touch the divine dragon remains in the dragon cave." Li Yu, on the other hand, looked solemn and said seriously, "We were slandered. The three insisted that Tuobuluan was slandering them. Tuobuluan crossed his arms and sneered coldly. No? Then where did my divine dragon remains come from? Liu said seriously, I picked them up on the road. Try picking one up. Tuobuluan laughed angrily. Stubborn? Lord Hong, don't waste your breath on them. Just check Su Yu's sword-shaped storage ring, and you'll know if I'm telling the truth. Hong Lei's eyes flashed, his gaze fixed on Su Yu. You won't give up until all hope is gone? To be honest, I've met too many people like you in this secret chamber, unwilling to give up until the very last moment. He took Su Yu's storage ring and said coldly, I gave you a chance to repent, but you didn't cherish it. If that's the case, don't blame me for being impartial. His original intention was to threaten and blackmail them. If they were as sensible as Tuobuluan and took the initiative to show respect, he could turn a big problem into a small one. However, Lu Tianji and the others couldn't say anything and couldn't admit to excavating the dragon cave. If that was the case, he could only go by the book. Hong Lei secretly regretted that he couldn't keep the precious dragon marrow, so he could only report it. With a hint of regret, he looked at Su Yu and the others with an even more unfriendly gaze. Opening the sword-shaped storage ring, Hong Lei's soul swept inside, and his expression froze. Tuobuluan laughed. My lord, are you surprised by their courage? Excavating the dragon bones without permission, and still resisting, refusing to admit it? Humph, I suggest that we punish them severely, not only them, but also their families, so that they can be subdued in the sword pavilion. However, Hong Lei retrieved his soul without saying a word, and flicked his fingers. 3 mysterious scents fell on Lu Tianji, Bai Hua Fairy, and Li Yu. The 3 scents circled around their bodies, and returned to Hong Lei's fingertip. Where are your storage artifacts? Hong Lei's expression was strangely calm. Lu Tianji and the other 2 turned to look at Tuobuluan, their intentions clear. Tuobuluan sneered. I merely used a small trick to snatch their storage rings. All the resources inside have already been handed over to Jian Xian. Hong Lei faintly nodded and said, So, this is the only storage device? Tuobuluan said, Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. He moved 40% of the divine dragon remains into this storage space. Is there a problem? Hong Lei shook his head. The problem is that there isn't. Hearing this, the hearts of Lu Tianji and the other 2 sank to the bottom. They could not hide it in the end. Lu Tianji laughed at himself. Jian Xian had always been strict with the inspection of storage devices. Could it be that he would overlook something as important as the dragon god's remains? It was ridiculous for him to have such a self-deceiving idea. Bai Hua Fairy also silently sighed. Everything is over, it's better to just die in the void. But, at this moment, Hong Lei frowned and added, Why aren't there any divine dragon remains? He opened the storage ring and poured out everything inside. There was only a light, fluttering grass that emitted starlight that fell to the ground. Yes, everything added up to a single starlight grass. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned, especially Lu Tianji and the others. They had seen Su Yu put the giant divine dragon remains and the petrified dragon bones into a sword-shaped storage device with their own eyes. Could it be another empty storage ring? Could the storage ring that really contained the divine dragon remains be another one? No, the aura that Hong Lei released just now was specifically used to sense sword-shaped storage devices. If Su Yu still had a storage device on him, he would have sensed it. Tuobuluan stared blankly at the familiar scene and said in disbelief, Su, what kind of trick are you playing? Where is the thing? Did you not bring it out? Lu Tianji and the others suddenly understood. If Su Yu had hidden it in the cave of 10,000 dragons and did not bring it out, it would make sense. Enough! Hong Lei frowned and stared coldly at Tuobuluan. He then looked at Su Yu and the others, his eyes even colder. Intuition told him that what Tuobuluan said was most likely true. However, the other party must have used some kind of trick to hide the divine dragon remains. Holding the empty sword-shaped storage device, Hong Lei felt a sense of anger at being fooled. He stood up, his eyes emitting a threatening light as he said in a menacing tone, "The four of you, as you are too suspicious, I think I will have to use the soul-searching technique." Lu Tianji's eyes were wide open, filled with panic. Bai Hua Fairy's and Li Yu's expressions were also filled with unease. No one liked to have their souls searched. Firstly, if the soul searcher did not have a very high level of attainment in the path of the soul, it was very easy to cause damage to the soul of the person being searched. Secondly, soul searching meant that all the secrets he was hiding would be discovered without any loopholes. And everyone had secrets that they were not willing to reveal to the outside world. This was the most frightening aspect of soul searching. "Don't worry, I have searched the souls of no less than 10,000 people, and I have never harmed a single soul." Hong Lei strode forward, his powerful aura suppressing the three of them to the point where they could not resist. However, anyone who needs to search their soul to prove their innocence will not have a good ending. Accompanied by the crushing pressure of the powerful aura, the cold words pierced through their hearts like sharp arrows. The soul-searching had begun. "I'll start with you." Hong Lei stared at Su Yu and said coldly, "I don't know why, but when I first saw you, I felt a sense of disgust. Let me see what you are hiding under your sneaky true face." A powerful soul energy instantly shot into the space between Su Yu's brows. This was the first step of soul-searching. Using the powerful soul energy to forcefully enter another person's soul and investigate wantonly. This process was very painful, as if the body was being torn apart. However, the one who screamed was not Su Yu but Hong Lei. "Ah, my soul. You have devoured my visitation soul?" Hong Lei's face was pale, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. His eyes were wide open, and his face was full of pain. He stared at Su Yu in disbelief, as if he had seen a ghost. Indeed, the part of his soul that he had probed had been devoured by Su Yu. Su Yu calmly said, "Reckless." When the heaven's sun-gazing at air technique was cultivated to the soul-devouring realm, he could devour the souls of others and use them for himself. It was already good enough that he did not actively devour other people's souls, but Hong Lei had sent his own soul in, which was no different from seeking death. "Who are you?" Hong Lei angrily shouted. "You are definitely not a member of an ordinary island faction. Tell me, who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Sword Pavilion?" Su Yu stood with his hands clasped behind his back, calmly smiling. "Special Envoy Hong, have you forgotten about me so quickly?" A strong wind blew past, blowing away his black robe, revealing Su Yu's true appearance. "Ah, it's you. Shui. Master Shui." Hong Lei was so shocked that he almost bit his tongue off. If there was anyone he did not want to meet in his life, it would be Su Yu. Firstly, Su Yu's identity was terrifying, as he was an appraiser personally recruited by the Starry Pavilion's master. Secondly, Hong Lei had concealed what he had seen on the Twin Star Island, not wanting the Sword Pavilion to know what had happened there. Hong Lei was still in shock when he heard Su Yu say, "I haven't seen you for a few months, and your status has improved a lot. You've been put in an important position by the Sword Pavilion's young master." Not bad, not bad. It would have been better if Su Yu had not said this, but as soon as he said it, Hong Lei immediately put on a pleading look and transmitted his voice. "Master Shui, I didn't expect it to be you. It's all my fault for offending you. Can you forgive me this time? If the Sword Pavilion knows that I've caused great trouble on the Twin Star Island, they'll definitely kill me." Su Yu transmitted his voice leisurely. "I can forgive you, but how should I deal with this matter?" Hong Lei was overjoyed. He stared at Tuobaluan, who was at a loss, and his eyes turned cold. He transmitted his voice again. "Don't worry, Master Shui, I'll give you a satisfactory answer." Hong Lei hated Tuobaluan to the core, and he could not hide from Su Yu at all times. However, Tuobaluan had dragged Shui Yu to him and almost searched his soul. If the Starry Pavilion knew about this, just the thought of it sent chills down Hong Lei's spine. After ending the transmission, Hong Lei regained his composure. He said, "So it's Master Shuiyu, sorry for the offense." Master Shui? Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. They had never heard of any famous Master Shui in the islands of the Sword Pavilion. Strangely, Hong Lei was still so polite. Li Yu's eyes trembled, and she stared at Su Yu without blinking. She felt like she was in a dream, and she stood there blankly. After a long time, a sense of relief, and peace of mind filled the depths of her eyes. She murmured in a voice that only she could hear, "No wonder he looks so familiar, so it was him." Tuobaluan was equally shocked. The expert swordsman he had met by chance, the mysterious strong man who made him feel threatened, was actually Shuiyu, whom he had disdained. Impossible! He couldn't accept this reality. "Lord Hong, please believe me. Search his soul immediately, and you will definitely find the location of the divine dragon's remains." Tuobaluan shouted. The veins on Hong Lei's forehead bulged. How dare he touch a treasure appraiser from the Star Pavilion? How many brains did he have to touch a treasure appraiser from the Star Pavilion? If he angered the Starry Pavilion, even the Sword Pavilion would be wiped out. Tuobaluan. Hong Lei shouted loudly and said righteously, "Master Shui is a man of status, why would he lie? Now I suspect that you're trying to frame him." "What?" Tuobaluan couldn't adapt to the sudden turn of events. He said, "Lord Hong, what do you mean? You took so many resources from me, and so much dragon marrow." Hong Lei's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Shut up." The powerful aura sent Tuobaluan flying. Coincidentally, the direction Tuobaluan was flying towards was where Su Yu was. Tuobaluan felt Hong Lei's murderous intent, but he was not afraid. Instead, he was enraged. Why was it that every time he met Su Yu, he became a stepping stone? On the Murong Island, when he was supposed to lead Murong Qingqing away, Su Yu intervened and made him return empty-handed. In front of the cave of 10,000 dragons, Murong Qingqing had a change of heart, which made him lose face. With the divine dragon's remains, he plotted against Lu Tianji and the 100-Flower Fairy, but was tricked by Su Yu instead. Until today, even a big shot like Hong Lei was supporting Su Yu. As the saying goes, anger comes from the heart, and evil comes from the guts. Chapter 1624. Taking advantage of the force of his flight, Tuobaluan shot towards Su Yu with unparalleled momentum. The snow-white feathers on his back all turned into sharp thorns, stabbing towards Su Yu. No one expected him to attack Su Yu. For a moment, no one could react. Su Yu's eyes flashed. No longer caring about the beauty under the moon, he shouted, "Dark Night Meteor Thrust." Wherever the tip of the sword passed, brilliant meteors were left, like fireworks, stunning the dark night sky. Puff, puff, puff. Several white feather thorns were destroyed one after another, clearing out an area. But Tuobaluan was attacking with all his might, ready to fight to the death. Moreover, he had seen Su Yu's moves before, so he did not hold back. As one white feather pierced through the air, another white feather stabbed towards Su Yu with even greater ferocity. It looked like Su Yu was going to penetrate it. "How dare you!" Hong Lei finally reacted when Su Yu blocked the attack. He did not need to attack. Just his unparalleled aura, like a tsunami, sent the incoming white feather flying. At the same time, Hong Lei teleported over, glaring at Tuobaluan angrily. He slammed his palm on the top of Tuobaluan's head and searched his soul. With a shrill scream, Tuobaluan's body convulsed, foaming at the mouth, and finally fell to the ground. His eyes were dull, and he had lost his mind. Hong Lei had deliberately destroyed part of his soul, causing him to become demented. Withdrawing his hand, Hong Lei said coldly, "Tuobaluan deliberately framed others, and refused to accept the soul search. I followed the rules of the faction and forcibly searched his soul, causing his mind to be destroyed." He turned to look at the crowd and said with a smile, If Jianxian investigates this, I hope you can speak up for me. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy stared at the lifeless Tuobalun, feeling delighted. Evil people will be tortured by evil people. Tuobaluan's sinister scheme had ended up harming him instead. If he had honestly dug up the divine dragon's remains from the beginning, would he have ended up like this? Of course. Lu Tianji and the others did not hesitate. Although they were relieved, their spirits could no longer remain calm. There was even an enormous pressure that made them feel like they were suffocating. They were all from the younger generation of the island forces, but Shui Yu was already an appraiser of the Starry Pavilion. His status was higher than any of the island masters. And that mysterious swordsmanship. They originally thought that Shui Yu was an old and shrewd cave world venerable. Who would have thought that his age was similar to theirs? The great disparity between them made them, who were all geniuses, feel even more disappointed, and they couldn't even raise their heads in front of Su Yu. Master Shui, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, allow me to send you out, Hong Lei said politely. Su Yu nodded. Since the 10,000 Dragon Cave was closed, there were not many people outside. Only the people of the 100 Flowers family, the Lu family, and the Feather God clan were left behind to wait for news from the secret room. The patriarch of the Lu clan, Lu Zhongtian, wore a solemn expression as he held a golden scroll in his hand, constantly moving the lines on it. Unfortunately, the lines were so complicated that even he couldn't see through them. On the side was the head of the 100 Flower family, Bai Hualan, who was also watching nervously. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted as she asked, "What's the situation?" Lu Zhongtian shook his head. "I can't. Hong Lei is too strong. His aura interferes with divination." Deep worry appeared on Bai Hualan's face. Bai Hua Fairy is one of the rare talents of the 100 Flower family. We have spent a lot of effort on her. If she dies like this... At this point, she turned her gaze to a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes who was sitting on an ice throne of the god of feather. Feeling Bai Hualan's gaze, the middle-aged man turned his head and smiled warmly. "Sister Bai Hua, it looks like your daughter is in trouble. Do you want me to ask Luaner to plead for her?" Bai Hualan's eyes were filled with hatred. "Tuoba Ing, if Bai Hua Fairy suffers irreparable damage, I will not let it go easily." Tuoba Ing was the patriarch of the Tuoba family. The 3 masters of the top island forces had all chosen to welcome their clansmen before the 10,000 Dragon Cave closed. Tuoba Ing laughed. "Sister Bai Hua, you are welcome to visit the God of Feather at any time." Creak, the secret chamber opened. Hong Lei was the first to walk out, followed closely by the stumbling Tuobaluan. His appearance caused Lu Zhongtian and Bai Hualan's hearts to sink. Their faces darkened as if the sky had collapsed. It seemed that Bai Hua Fairy, Lu Tianji, and the other 2 people had met with misfortune and were unable to leave the secret chamber. Tuoba Ing laughed heartily and walked down from the throne. He cupped his fists at Hong Lei. "Congratulations, Envoy Hong, we have caught another suspect who excavated the remains of the God of Dragons." "Congratulations." Hong Lei put on a fake smile and gestured with his hand to push Tuoba Luan toward him. "Patriarch Tuoba, take your son home and see if he can carry on the family line. He will not be able to inherit the position of your patriarch." Tuoba Ing, who was smiling, was obviously taken aback. He did not understand the meaning behind Hong Lei's words. When he took a closer look, he realized that Tuoba Luan's eyes were strange. He pointed a finger at Tuoba Luan's forehead and examined it. Tuoba Ing roared in disbelief. His mind was destroyed? Who did this? He stared at Su Yu and the others who were slowly walking out of the secret chamber. "I did it, do you have any objections?" Hong Lei put his hands behind his back and stared at Tuoba Ing. Why did you do this?" Tuoba Ing could not understand. How many benefits did Hong Lei receive from the Feather God clan? Not only did he not help Tuoba Luan, he even caused his mind to be destroyed? Hong Lei said in a businesslike manner. Tuoba Luan deliberately framed others. I tried to search his soul for proof, but he resisted and his soul was damaged. He stared at Tuoba Ing and said, Tuoba Ing, seeing that your son's mind has been destroyed, I will not pursue the matter of him maliciously framing others. Take him and leave immediately. If I change my mind, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Tuoba Ying's palms trembled slightly, his heart filled with hatred. However, he did not dare to lash out at Hong Lei. Instead, he cast his furious gaze at Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy. His gaze was as if he wanted to devour them. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy could not help but smile bitterly. They had no choice but to take the blame. Thank you, Envoy Hong, for not killing us. Tuoba Ying's face was gloomy. He carried Tuoba Luan and led his people away. Everyone could see that Tuoba Ying was suppressing his killing intent. Bai Hua Lan and Lu Zhongtian exchanged glances, meaning to be wary of Tuoba Ying from now on. His revenge would soon come. However, seeing that Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji were safe, they sighed in relief. Just as they were about to go over, they saw a strange scene. Among the four people, a man wearing a moonlight sword was bidding farewell to them. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy politely bowed to him, then enthusiastically chatted with him for a bit, vaguely wanting to befriend him. What shocked them even more was that Special Envoy Hong was also very polite. He kept a smile on his face and watched him leave. Only after the man had left did Hong Lei's expression return to his usual arrogant self. He coldly glanced at Bai Hualan and Lu Zhongtian, then impolitely waved his hand. The cave of 10,000 dragons has closed, go back. In Envoy Hong's eyes, the two of them were nothing compared to that young man. Bai Hualan and Lu Zhongtian were both shocked. When Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji returned to their side, they couldn't wait to ask, who was that man? Why was Envoy Hong so respectful towards him? Bai Hua Fairy answered, he was the second young master of Dual Star Island's Shui family, Shuiyu. Shuiyu. Bai Hualan and Lu Zhongtian muttered this name, but it was unfamiliar in their minds. They asked in surprise. Dual Star Island's Shui family is ranked 7th and 8th, and he's also the second son, far away from the position of patriarch. Why was Envoy Hong so polite? Bai Hua Fairy sighed. Mother, do you think that Sir Hong is someone who would treat a mere patriarch nicely? The two of them were speechless. Just now, Envoy Hong's attitude towards the two of them wasn't respectful at all, but rather impatient. Then what is this Shuiyu's background? Why is he so polite to Envoy Hong? Lu Zhongtian asked. Lu Tianji was silent for a while, then said, you might not believe it, but Shuiyu has another identity, Star Pavilion's appraiser. As the last 6 words entered their ears, Lu Zhongtian and Bai Hualan's pupils contracted. Lu Zhongtian said, Tianji, did you hear it wrong? As far as I know, the Star Pavilion's appraisers are all famous figures in the Sword Pavilion Ocean. Why would they hire a young kid? Lu Tianji sighed. I also hope that I heard it wrong, but these words came from Envoy Hong himself. How could it be false? Hearing this, the two of them were shocked. After a while, Lu Zhongtian said, I can't believe that the Shui family had secretly gotten close to the Star Pavilion. That's right. Bai Hualan said, we've never paid attention to the Shui family before, but now it seems like we need to get closer to them. She then rejoiced. Fortunately, Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji are friends with this person, so their trip wasn't without results. Hearing this, Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji both smiled bitterly. They were all of the younger generation, but they were glad to know Shuiyu. For them, who had always been proud and arrogant, there was nothing to be happy about. No matter what, there's nothing wrong with paying a visit to the Shui family first. Lu Zhongtian said. Bai Hualan nodded happily. It was on the way anyway, there's no harm in paying a visit. Suyu headed to the Shui family alone. Now that he had the dragon marrow, it was only a matter of time before he broke through the barrier of the divine path. And the Shui family, because of his existence, could enjoy long-term peace and prosperity. Perhaps it was time to leave the Shui family. This trip back would be a farewell. "You're leaving pretty fast." A familiar voice came from behind. Su Yu stopped and turned his head. "You followed me?" He wasn't nervous, because the person behind him couldn't be any more familiar. "You're the one who took my stone dragon bone sword, aren't you?" The person grumbled. Who else could she be other than Li Yu? Now that things had come to this, it was impossible to hide it anymore, so he simply said, "You want to get it back?" "No." Unexpectedly, Li Yu was very calm. "You saved my life, you took the stone dragon bone sword, it's understandable, I won't ask for it back. But, the stone dragon bone sword is related to one of my assessment missions. Can you help me prove that I'm the one who took the sword when I need it?" Li Yu asked. Su Yu thought for a moment, then said, "All right." Li Yu smiled. "Then, let's go back together. I believe Twin Star Island will only get more and more interesting." Her words had a deeper meaning. At the same time, the sealed 10,000 dragon cave reopened, and two figures flew out from it. One was the young master of the sword pavilion, Jian Ruxiong, and the other was a person with snow-white eyebrows and purple lips. Chapter 1625. He was the one who established the sword gazebo, and was the overlord of the sword gazebo ocean. As soon as he appeared, the entire sword gazebo island trembled slightly. Countless experts of the sword gazebo soared into the sky from the island and flew over to greet him. Hong Lei was among them. Jian Ruxiong looked somewhat exhausted. There were many wounds on his body that were difficult to heal, and his invisible soul was also injured. It seemed like he didn't have an easy time against the dragon souls, even though he came prepared. "Faming, have you found the whereabouts of the stone dragon bone sword?" Jian Ruxiong clenched his fists with a dark expression and killing intent in his eyes. He had gone through untold hardships, only to end up as a wedding dress for others. Jian Faming shook his head. After images of blood-red swords remained in his eyes. He used the Heavenly Heart Sword Eye to scan the entire 10,000 dragon cave, but he found nothing. The person who took the stone dragon bone sword had changed his appearance several times, so it was impossible to track him down. Jian Ruxiong stared at Hong Lei. "Have you checked everyone's sword-shaped storage artifacts?" Hong Lei said with certainty, "My lord, apart from the missing ones, we've checked everything, but we didn't find the stone dragon bone sword." Jian Ruxiong and Jian Faming's expressions became even uglier. They had sealed the 10,000 dragon cave for 5 days because they were worried that the person who took the stone dragon bone sword wouldn't be able to take it away and would leave it in the 10,000 dragon cave. However, they found nothing after 5 days of searching. And now, Hong Lei had also received bad news. The stone dragon bone sword was most likely left in a secret place in the 10,000 dragon cave. Even if they used all the resources of the sword gazebo, it would take them 100 years to find it. It was obvious that they didn't have the patience for 100 years. Just as they were at their wits' end, a weak voice entered everyone's ears. "Sword Master, I'm Tuoba Ing of the Feather God race. I have something to tell you." Tuoba Ing stood outside the crowd and said. Jian Ruxiong frowned, but he couldn't be bothered to pay attention. Hong Lei's eyes turned cold when he saw that and he yelled, "How dare you! Is the Sword Master someone you can disturb? Get out of the island right now." However, Tuoba Ying's expression was firm as he said, "Sword Master, what I want to tell you might have something to do with the stone dragon bone sword." Jian Ruxiong raised his eyebrows and waved his sleeves. Tuoba Ing, who was thousands of miles away, was pulled in front of him without any resistance. Tuoba Ing was in awe, but he was also more determined. "What do you know? Speak." Jian Ruxiong glared at him. Tuoba Ing waved his hand and a gray figure appeared beside him like a ghost. "This person is an elder of my clan who is an expert in concealment. His name is Tuoba Ing. I arranged for him to stay by my son Tuobaluan's side. He told me that not only did he personally see by Hua Fairy, Lu Tianji, Shuiyu, and the mysterious woman excavating the dragon bones. He also saw that brat called Shui Yu take out a petrified dragon bone and use it as a sword once. I wonder if it is the stone dragon bone sword that the sword master mentioned. Jian Ruxiong's eyes flashed. Petrified dragon bones? A mysterious woman? He pondered for a while and suddenly made a move. His huge palms sucked the gray shadow over, and he began to search his soul. A mournful scream came from the gray figure's mouth as his entire body trembled in pain. Tuoba Ing turned a blind eye to this and coldly waited for the result. A while later, Tuoba Ing was put down. However, his soul was completely shattered, and he lay limply on the ground like a pile of mud, without any signs of life. Jian Ruxiong waved his hand. His gaze was calm, like the calm before the storm. He placed his hands behind his back and said, "Fei Ming, start the ritual. Bring out my Mahayana sword." His words echoed in the sky above the sword loft. Everyone in the sword loft trembled. The Mahayana sword was a true sovereign divine armament that the Purple Dream Sovereign personally bestowed to Jian Ruxiong. The Purple Dream Sovereign was one of the 3 sovereigns who had ruled over the Sea of Constellations for billions of years. She had over 1,000 overlord experts under her command. Only those experts who were bestowed the Purple Flower Pavilion's divine armament had the right to expand their territory and establish themselves as the ruler of an ocean. Back then, Jian Ruxiong was extremely spirited. With his peerless sword techniques, he was praised by the Purple Dream Sovereign and was bestowed a divine armament, the Mahayana sword, to the Purple Flower Pavilion. From then on, Jian Ruxiong carried the sword and established his own sect here. As for the Mahayana sword, it was enshrined in the depths of the sword loft. Unless it was necessary to meet the Purple Dream Sovereign or when there was a huge change, it wouldn't be used. And now, Jian Ruxiong was going to pull it out. The sword loft has been too lenient toward the island forces under its command. They've already forgotten about the sword loft's existence. Jian Ruxiong's gaze was cold as he sighed. The sword loft needs to be bathed in blood. Jian Feiming was overjoyed and said, "You should have done this long ago. Those island forces have been putting off paying the starlight grass. I can tell that they've been planning to rebel since a long time ago. It's time to massacre those who don't listen, especially the Shui family. They don't know what's good for them." Tuoba Ing added, "Also, the 100-Flower family and Lu family dug up the dragon bones without permission. They don't respect the sword loft at all." Jian Feiming nodded and smiled cruelly. "Don't worry. None of them will be able to escape. Everyone in the sword loft, gather the army. Once I recover from my injuries, we'll attack the rebels." Jian Ruxiong raised his arm and shouted. The entire sword loft was in an uproar. As an overlord, it had been too long since they'd taught the island forces a lesson with blood. The blood of the members of the sword loft was boiling with anticipation. After all, every annihilation of a clan meant a feast to divide up the resources of the island forces. Be it the spiritual treasures of the world or the beauties of the clan, they would all be in the bag. Among the crowd, Hong Lei's eyes shone brightly. The Twin Star Island, unaware of the impending disaster, was as calm and relaxed as ever. Li Qianquan stretched in the yard. Looking at the clear sky, he felt relaxed and joyful, which he hadn't felt for a long time. Ever since he'd confirmed that Shui Yu had fallen in the cave of 10,000 dragons, he'd been in high spirits. He was even more energetic when it came to sexual intercourse. The mistresses of the 13th house complained incessantly. They thought that the master of the house was glowing with health and vigor. "Haha, Juner, have you rested well?" Li Qianquan's face was flushed. Li Jun regained his vigor and said, "I've been back for 5 days. Of course I've rested well. What orders do you have for me, father?" Li Qianquan smiled while stroking his beard. "Don't you want to visit the Shui family with me? We've received a lot of favors from the Shui family in the past." Recalling how the Li family had tolerated the Shui family after Su Yu had joined the Starry Pavilion, Li Qianquan felt like he had a fishbone stuck in his throat. He couldn't take it lying down if he didn't settle the score. Now that Shui Yu had fallen, the Shui family must have received the news. Without Shui Yu, the Shui family was nothing in the face of the Starry Pavilion. Li Jun also felt that he'd been a coward for too long. Now that he had regained his footing, he would be letting down the heavens if he didn't find trouble with the Shui family. Then I'll pick a good gift and pay a visit. Li Jun took out a simple gift box the size of a palm. There was only a stalk of starlight grass in it. Li Jun winked. "Haha, father, what do you think of this gift?" Li Qianquan took out the starlight grass, broke it in half, and put the other half into the box. "Look at you, the Shui family is now rich and doesn't care for a stalk of starlight grass. Let's keep the other half for ourselves." "Haha, father is wise. Shui Yuntian might vomit blood in anger when he sees it." Li Jun could almost see Shui Yuntian's expression when he opened the gift box and saw the half-stalk of starlight grass. Li Qianquan stroked his beard and laughed. "Let's go, Juner. Let's pay a visit together." When they arrived at the Shui family's door, the two of them were slightly shocked. The Shui family's door was crowded with people and carriages. Various island forces, big and small, had come to pay a visit. All of them carried heavy gifts as if they were congratulating the Shui family. "Father, what's going on?" Li Jun asked uneasily. Li Qianquan pondered for a while and said, "I think the news of Shui Yu becoming a Starry Pavilion appraiser has finally spread. However, they don't know that Shui Yu is already dead." Li Jun heaved a sigh of relief. "Then, should we still?" Li Qianquan rolled his eyes at him. "Why not? The more it's like this, the more we have to congratulate them. After all, it's a happy occasion for the Shui family. As a close neighbor, how can we not congratulate them?" "Hee." Li Jun let out a strange laugh and followed his father into the Shui family. The Shui family's living room was filled with guests. Not only were there the leaders of the top island forces like Bai Hualan and Lu Zhongtian, but there were also the leaders of various islands, including Murong Feng, whose relationship with the Shui family had been restored. Shui Yuntian was talking and laughing with them, and the scene made Li Qianquan jealous. Only the leader of the Sword Pavilion had enjoyed such a grand occasion. As for the rest, who was qualified to be congratulated by so many island leaders? The front hall was bustling, but the atmosphere in the back hall was a bit strange. Murong Qingqing stared at Li Yu and said, "Young Master Shui, we all thought you were already. I didn't expect you to be with Miss Li Yu." Half a day ago, when the Shui family was in mourning, Su Yu came back alive. The Shui family was pleasantly surprised. The only flaw was that Shui Yu was accompanied by the daughter of the Li family, Li Yu. Of course, the Shui family quickly forgot about this. Shui Yu was famous all over the world now, so it was normal for him to be surrounded by beauties. Only Murong Qingqing had a knot in her heart. It turned out that Shui Yu had disappeared for so long because he was alone with another woman. How could Su Yu not see through her probing intentions? "Too lazy to care," he said. "Li Yu and I are just ordinary friends. Let's go. The front hall is full of island leaders. Let's go out and meet them." He didn't like this kind of occasion, but only by showing up personally could he make the island leaders feel at ease and make friends with the Shui family. From now on, the Shui family would have a smooth sailing in the Sword Pavilion Ocean, with very few obstacles. This was the last time he would help the Shui family. At the same time, in the front hall, Shui Yuntian noticed the arrival of Li Qianquan and his son, and was slightly surprised. Since Shui Yu became an appraiser of the Star Pavilion, Li Qianquan would take a detour whenever he saw him, afraid of bumping into him. Why did he take the initiative to congratulate him today? Especially his confident expression, as if he had eaten 100,000 fairy fruits, as if he was about to fly to the sky. However, he was a guest, and he didn't want to lose face in front of so many island leaders. He smiled. "So it's Li family leader. Sorry for not going out to meet you." What brings you here? Li Qianquan put on a fake smile. Of course I'm here to congratulate Shui family leader. After all, something like that happened to your Shuiyu. What? Lu Zhongtian was suspicious. Li family leader is on Double Star Island. Don't tell me you just found out that nephew Shuiyu is an appraiser of the Star Pavilion? Li Qianquan's eyelids twitched and he chuckled. Of course not. I'm talking about something else about Shuiyu. Everyone's attention was attracted by his words, which had a deeper meaning, and they couldn't help but look over curiously. Li Qianquan's lips curled into a mocking smile, and he thought to himself, since Shui Yuntian doesn't want to announce the bad news of Shuiyu's death, then I'll be the bad guy. Just as he was about to speak, a few footsteps came from the back hall. Su Yu, accompanied by two stunning beauties, walked out with an extraordinary bearing. Chapter 1626. Seeing Su Yu, the island masters did not dare act arrogantly. They all stood up and congratulated him. I am Bai Walan. Congratulations to Master Shui for becoming a Star Pavilion appraiser. Congratulations. Ha ha, I have long heard of second young Master Shui's name. Now that I have seen you today, you are indeed a dragon among men. Lu Zhongtian observed Su Yu. In his eyes, he could faintly see the 9 dragons on Su Yu's back. Since ancient times, 9 to 5 was the sign of an emperor. Controlling the 9 dragons was the symbol of an emperor. Hence, he did not deliberately flatter Su Yu. Instead, he kept a low profile. But he could not suppress the shock in his heart. He, who was proficient in divination, had a premonition at first glance that the youth in front of him was an emperor who stood above all others. But Lu Zhongtian felt incredulous. He had divined the waters of the Sword Pavilion more than once, but had never sensed an existence with the emperor's mandate. This made Lu Zhongtian very confused. Haha, nephew Shuiyu, how have you been? I stayed at the Shui Manor to wait for your return, to congratulate you for becoming a Star Pavilion appraiser. Murong Feng also came forward to congratulate him, his tone very polite. The rest of the island masters all came forward to congratulate him. Only Li Qianquan and Li Jun were motionless like wooden statues, a stark contrast. Su Yu smiled in response. Everyone, please take a seat. The island masters took their seats, but Li Qianquan and his son were still standing in their original positions. Ever since Su Yu had appeared, their minds had gone blank, as if they had lost their souls. Seeing that the two of them were behaving strangely, Su Yu was slightly surprised and asked, Master Li, Brother Li, the two of you are? Oh, right, I wonder what matter Master Li mentioned about me just now? I am also very interested to hear it. Li Qianquan and his son finally snapped out of their daze. Their arrogant expressions were completely different. At that moment it was as if the sky had collapsed, their faces pale and their eyes lifeless. It was over. Su Yu was lucky, he had not died. He must have known that the Li family had ambushed them. With Shui Yu's current status, he did not need to ask the Star Pavilion for help. The hundreds of island masters present would be more than happy to serve Su Yu and kill the entire Li family to please Shui Yu. Thinking of this, Li Qianquan broke out in cold sweat. Li Jun was in an even worse state. His legs were trembling and his lips were trembling. Father, Brother Shui is asking you a question. You should answer him. Li Yu spoke at the right time. She looked calm and gave Li Qianquan a comforting look. Li Qianquan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Su Yu didn't know about what had happened that day? If that was the case, Li Qianquan seemed to have found a life-saving straw and saw the light of hope. At this moment, all thoughts of occupying Twin Star Island and secretly killing Shui Yu were thrown out of his mind. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, and he felt that his plan to ambush Su Yu was extremely risky. Su Yu laughed. Is it because I am present that it is inconvenient for Master Li to talk about it? Su Yu's eyes were filled with suspicion. He was a perceptive person. How could he not see the strange expressions of Li Qianquan and his son? Noticing the strange look in Su Yu's eyes, Li Qianquan's body trembled slightly, and his heart felt bitter. He was here to announce Shui Yu's grievous news. Apart from that, what else could he announce? He racked his brains but couldn't find a way out of this embarrassing situation. Even Li Yu, who was beside him, sighed inwardly, feeling anxious for him. As time passed bit by bit, the suspicion in Su Yu's eyes became deeper and deeper, and the island masters gradually revealed impatient expressions. Li Qianquan knew that he couldn't drag it on any longer, or Su Yu would definitely see through him. He couldn't help but cast a questioning look at Li Yu. Li Yu's beautiful eyes flickered, expressing her helplessness. Who asked Li Qianquan to announce something important about Shui Yu in such a high-profile manner? She couldn't think of any words in such a short time. Li Qianquan's heart sank, and he had no idea what to do. Suddenly, Li Jun saw Li Yu standing close to Su Yu's left side, facing Murong Qingqing. He couldn't help but realize something. Who was Murong Qingqing? Although Shui Yu's fiancée had cancelled the engagement, she had been living in the Shui family as the future daughter-in-law of the Shui family for the past 6 months. Sister Li Yu and Murong Qingqing standing face to face seemed to have some special meaning. He cast a glance at Li Qianquan. Li Qianquan was slightly startled. He looked at Li Yu and Shui Yu, a little confused. All of a sudden, he remembered something. At that time, Star Pavilion Master Mu Songhai had joked that if Shui Yu fancied Li Yu, she would be the matchmaker. Thinking of this, his eyes fiercely shone as he said excitedly, "Master Shui, Island Masters, this matter concerns Master Shui's life. Therefore, I was a little hesitant. I hope you can forgive me." 100 Blossom Blue's beautiful brows creased slightly. Li family leader, if you have something to say it quickly. Don't try to change the topic. In other words, he was too long-winded. Li Qianquan cleared his throat and coughed twice, then said, "Actually, my daughter Li Yu has always admired Master Shui. As a father, he understands my daughter's feelings. Therefore, he has decided to propose marriage to the Shui family in front of all the island masters. He hopes that the two families will be connected through marriage and put an end to my daughter's yearning." Li Qianquan had been holding back for a long time. It was actually a marriage between the two families? But soon, many island masters cursed inwardly. Preposterous! That old man Li Qianquan actually beat us to it. Why is he thinking the same thing as me? I still want to introduce my precious daughter to him. You really can't judge a book by its cover. That Li Qianquan usually doesn't say anything, but he is actually so shrewd. What should we do? Li Qianquan has spoken first. How am I supposed to speak? All of a sudden, the expressions of many island masters changed, and they all stared at him with unfriendly looks. Li Qianquan's whole body turned cold. He was like a frog being stared at by hundreds of poisonous snakes. He was so frightened that his heart was thumping wildly. Shui Yuntian was stunned. He did not expect Li Qianquan to propose a marriage between the two families at this juncture. He looked at Li Yu. Although the Shui family was inferior, Shui Yuntian knew Li Yu very well. Her character was different from the rest of the Shui family. If she were to marry into the Shui family, he would be very happy. But he could not make a decision for Shui Yu in this matter. He could not help but look at Shui Yu and ask, "What do you think?" Su Yu was confused. Ever since he came into contact with Li Yu had a simple temperament and was emotionless. At least, he had never felt admiration from Li Yu. He could not help but look at Li Yu and ask, "Miss Li, is this the result of your discussion with the Li family's master?" Even though Li Yu was usually calm, she was shocked by her father's earth-shattering words. Her crystal-clear eyes blinked repeatedly. When she looked at her father, she could not help but complain. Her daughter was innocent. How could he slander her in public? She was about to reject him. But she heard Li Qianquan's pleading voice. Just admit it. I really can't think of an excuse." "But you can't bring up my marriage, can you?" Li Yu replied. Li Qianquan said, It's my fault. But please admit it for the sake of the lives of the whole family. Do you really want our ambush of Shuiyu to be exposed, and the whole Li family to be destroyed? Li Yu secretly clenched her teeth. She was angry, which was rare in her life. But after a moment's deliberation, she sighed helplessly. For the sake of the family, she could only compromise. What do you want me to do? Li Yu regained her coldness. Li Qianquan was delighted. He said, It's very simple. Admit that you admire Shuiyu and ask me to propose marriage. Of course, words alone are not enough. It would be best if you can take action. Li Yu thought for a moment and murmured, Action? Okay, I understand. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Li Yu was calm as if nothing had happened. She said, Yes, I admire Shuiyu. I asked my father to propose marriage. Hearing that, the crowd burst into an uproar. Pooh! Shameless vixen! How could you say such a thing without batting an eyelid? Many young women cursed secretly through telepathy. However, what caused them to be dumbfounded was, after Li Yu finished speaking, she squatted down and approached Su Yu. She kissed Su Yu's cheek with her rosy lip. This kind of shameless behavior really shocked them, and they were stunned when they saw it. Even Bai Hualan, Lu Zhongtian, and the others were stunned. Su Yu was even more stunned. He looked at Li Yu and said in surprise, Why did you? Li Yu wiped her lips, looking confused. She said, I admire you, so I kissed you. Isn't that how it is between lovers? Unfortunately, she was focused on the martial path. All she knew about romantic relationships came from stories she had heard by chant. She felt that kissing someone when she admired them was the most natural thing to do. However, she did not know how shocking it was in public. Su Yu's mind was in a mess. He could not understand the situation. Did Li Yu really admire him? You don't believe me? Li Yu frowned. She did not understand how romantic relationships could be so troublesome. She said, Then I'll kiss you again. Stop. Su Yu covered his face hurriedly. I believe you, okay? Li Yu straightened her body and said, Oh. She stood on Su Yu's left side with an expressionless face. She did not care about the surprised gazes of the crowd. Su Yu felt a slight headache. After pondering for a moment, he said apologetically, Miss Li, I accept your kindness. However, I'm focused on the martial path. I'm afraid I'll let you down. His tactful rejection was obvious. Moreover, it also indirectly dispelled the other island masters' thoughts. Some of them were glad that Li Qianquan had tried on their behalf, so they would not have been rejected awkwardly. Some of them blamed Li Qianquan for blocking this path. They believed that, if they were the ones to do it, there might be a chance. For example, the 100 Flowers Blue. Her daughter, the 100 Flowers Fairy, was far superior to the Li family in terms of appearance, talent, and family influence. Unfortunately, Li Qianquan had ruined their plans. She stared at Li Qianquan, then at his empty body. She said, Master Li, apart from coming here to propose marriage, did you not prepare a congratulatory gift for him? Li Qianquan, who had finally found his footing, once again hovered in the air. His fingers carelessly touched the half of the starlight herb gift box in his sleeve. Seeing his embarrassed expression, Su Yu tried to smooth things over. He said, It's fine. As long as he's here. I appreciate your kindness. There's no need to make things difficult for Master Li. Chapter 16:27. Li Qianquan's heart skipped a beat, cold sweat appearing on his forehead again. Of course there is a gift, of course. Bai Hualan provoked, then take it out. Dilly-dallying is annoying. Li Qianquan laughed bitterly. How could he find a gift in such a hurry? Clenching his teeth, Li Qianquan took out the crudely wrapped gift box and said sheepishly, This is the gift that I have prepared. Everyone looked at each other in dismay when they saw the simple gift box that seemed to have been used. Hey, what kind of gift is this? Why is the gift box so unusual? Everyone, do not look down on it. The Li family is a powerful force, and their resources are much stronger than ours. Now that Shuiyu has made a name for himself, There is no reason for the Li family to prepare such a meager gift. I am guessing that it must be something extremely valuable. Yes, that's right. I had the same guess. The gift box is simple, but the contents are of the highest quality. The contrast shows how valuable the contents are. I have to say that Master Li is a shrewd person. After listening to such a logical analysis, everyone was quite convinced. Only Li Qianquan was breaking out in cold sweat. At that moment, he wished he could dig a hole in the ground and strangle the analysts. Would they die if they did not speak? What made his whole body stiffen was that Su Yu looked interested. Su Yu laughed and said, "Haha, after hearing what you said, I am a little interested now." One of the elders of the Xue family walked forward, smiling as he took the gift box from Li Qianquan and placed it in Su Yu's palm. "Master Xue, why don't you take a look in front of everyone? We also want to know what special gift Master Li has prepared." Bai Hualan looked dissatisfied. Su Yu chuckled and said, "Fine, then let everyone have a look." Buzz, Su Yu tore off the ribbon and opened the gift box. Li Qianquan blacked out, his ears ringing. He was on the verge of fainting. It was over. The expected fluke did not appear. A deathly silence filled the hall. The crowd stared at the half of the starlight grass, unable to believe their eyes. In particular, the few elders who had analyzed the matter with reason and evidence were even more stunned on the spot. Bai Hualan could not help but laugh. Half of the starlight grass? Master Li, am I seeing things? This is your congratulatory gift? Are you here to humiliate Master Xue? Everyone in the Xue family frowned. Xue Yuntian also understood. No wonder Li Qianquan was so arrogant when he came, as if he had a great backer. When he thought of this gift, he became even more suspicious of Li Qianquan's true intentions for coming today. Li Jun's legs went soft, and he almost fell to the ground. Li Qianquan's face was even paler. It was really over. Everything was going to be exposed. At that moment, Su Yu laughed softly. The gift from the Li family's master is quite interesting. Half of the starlight herb. I believe that the other half is with you, right? Li Qianquan's face was ashen as he took out the other half of the sword from his sleeve. Su Yu lamented, "I appreciate Master Li's kind intentions, but Miss Li and I are more suited to be friends. I understand the meaning behind this half of the starlight herb, please take it back." He flicked his finger and the gift box flew back. Li Qianquan caught it in a daze. A moment later, he came to a realization. He hurriedly said, "Yes, I was rude. Originally, I was going to give you and Yuer half of the starlight herb, meaning that your future life will be as splendid and beautiful as the starlight herb." Alas! After listening to his words, everyone felt strange, but they couldn't pinpoint what was wrong. But if Xue Yu didn't mind, why should they, the outsiders, say anything? Even Bai Hua Fairy didn't say anything. After going through another hurdle, Li Qianquan's whole body went soft. He held onto the chair and sat down. Su Yu smiled lightly and changed the topic. "We are all from the island influences of the Jianxian Ocean. We are of the same branch, and should take care of each other. If the Xue family is in trouble in the future, we will still need to rely on you." Hearing that, many of the island masters were overjoyed. With that, their trip here was not in vain. Yes, we are all struggling influences. It is only right for us to help each other. If the Xue family is in trouble in the future, the Jianxian Island will be the first to come. The Fairy Bone Island will not fall behind. With the support of many islands, Su Yu's last wish was fulfilled. As long as he was alive, the Xue family's days in the Jianxian Ocean would be more comfortable than any other influences. He had a clear conscience about the Xue family, and he had fulfilled his promise to this body. He had also obtained most of the dragon marrow that he needed to become a deity. It was time to bid farewell to the Jianxian Ocean. The guests dispersed and left the Twin Star Island. Li Yu stayed behind and bowed to Su Yu. "Thank you for letting the Xue family go." Su Yu asked, Do I have anything to hold against the Shui family? Li Yu was as calm as ever, like a god above the common people. She softly said, "When you were playing chess with Dragon Soul, your chess skill was calculated step by step. You are destined to be a person with monstrous intelligence. With your intelligence, it is impossible for you to not see the peculiarity between my stupid younger brother and father. But you chose to ignore it, and in the end, you even helped my father get out of the embarrassing situation. I think you already know that it was the Li family who ambushed the Shui family's beast carriage in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons." Sure enough, Su Yu's lips curled into a faint smile and he nodded. Li Yu sighed and said, "Why did you let us go so easily? We almost killed you. All you need to do now is to give the order, and the Li family will be destroyed." Su Yu turned around and looked at her. He said softly, "Because of you." "Me?" Li Yu touched her chest. For some reason, she, who was usually calm, was flustered and could not help but press her hand against her chest. Su Yu continued, "The Shui family is too weak, and we need allies, not enemies. I might be able to uproot the Li family and monopolize the Twin Star Island, but so what? The Shui family is weak and cannot control the resources of the entire Twin Star Island. So, I hope that one day, when you become the master of the Li family, you can help me take care of the Shui family." Su Yu felt much more relaxed after revealing his true feelings. He had been in the Jianxian Ocean for many days, and the only person he could call a friend was probably Li Yu. "I see," Li Yu said, but she shook her head. "But I don't think I can be the master of the Li family." Su Yu was surprised. "Why? In terms of potential and strength, no one in the younger generation of the Li family can surpass you, and your father values you far more than your brother. Does the Li family have other forces that can influence the future successor of the Li family?" Li Yu shook her head. "No, the one who decided that I can't be the master of the Li family is me." "You?" Su Yu did not understand. Li Yu took out the small emerald sword and drew a circle around her, trapping her. Drawing a circle restricts not only one's vision, but also one's ambitions. Li Yu looked at the horizon and said, "The Twin Star Island is but a drop in the ocean. My ambition is to look down on the world and roam the 9 heavens. Even if my soul dies in a foreign land, I will have no regrets or resentment." No regrets, resentment. Su Yu's heart trembled, and he stared at Li Yu in shock. It was as if he was looking at a young eagle struggling to fly into the sky. He also saw himself, weak as a speck of dust, struggling step by step on the Shernue Island above the ocean, until today. "My potential may be mediocre, but the path is under my feet. If I keep walking, I will see prosperity that I have never seen before." Li Yu's eyes were burning with passion. She turned her head to look at Su Yu and said, "Can you understand me?" Looking at the girl who looked weak on the outside but was strong on the inside, Su Yu said, "I understand." Li Yu smiled indifferently. She stepped on the moonlight like a beauty under the moonlight, and gradually walked away. Su Yu watched her leave, his heart suddenly feeling empty. After this farewell, they might never cross paths again in this life. "Goodbye, Li Yu." Su Yu waved at her blurry back, then slowly rose into the sky. The Twin Star Island under his feet gradually shrunk, and the Shui manor became more and more indistinct, until it was like a speck of dust. "Goodbye, Shui family, goodbye, Twin Star Island." A soft sigh was left in the sky, and then Su Yu disappeared. In the Shui family. In the study, Elder Qinyan said, "Master, we have searched everywhere, but Shui Yu has disappeared. Could he have been kidnapped by one of the island masters who left?" Shui Yuntian held a scroll in his hand. Under the dim light, his face was indescribably complicated. There was emptiness, apology, and a tinge of sadness. He was like an old man who had lost his child, full of vicissitudes and sorrow. "Master, please give the order. I will immediately lead my people to search for him." Shui Yuntian put down the scroll and said, "There is no need to look for him. No island master has the ability to kidnap him. He left on his own. Why did Shueyu leave? This is his home. Shui Yuntian looked out into the sky, where the lonely stars quietly recounted the loneliness of the night sky. His home is at the edge of the sky. Stepping on the mist in the night sky, Su Yu headed east. He wanted to find a safe and secluded island to train in isolation for 10 years, break through the deity level, and return to his former peak. All of a sudden, the faint smell of blood wafted into his nostrils from the mist. Several severely injured giant birds brushed past Su Yu. The mount of the island master of the Eagle Island? Su Yu frowned. His intuition told him that something had happened. Sure enough, several breaths were approaching rapidly from afar, chasing after the mount. Su Yu knew the people approaching. Among them was the master of the Divine Feather Clan, Tuoba Ing. He and 3 other members of the Jian Xian formed a small team, and their hands were all stained with blood. Tuoba Ing was the first to spot Su Yu, and his face was filled with ecstasy. Shueyu! It's Shueyu! We found Shueyu here! He sent out a message immediately, and a powerful wave of information spread in all directions. Su Yu frowned slightly and flew towards the south. Swoosh! Tuoba Ing stopped him in a flash, smiling excitedly. Ha ha, Shueyu! Don't you know yet? You have been listed as a special class wanted criminal by the Jian Xian. No one has ever enjoyed such treatment. As long as you are caught, the Jian Xian will be rewarded with the honor of a permanent guest. The Jian Xian had never regarded the island forces as people. Being a guest was the greatest reward that the Jian Xian could bestow. Not only did it mean that he would no longer have to pay for the starlight grass, but it also meant that he would gain the Jian Xian's trust and become a member of the Jian Xian. Chapter 1628. Purple smoke curled around Su Yu's feet, and a cloud sky ship appeared. The speed of the cloud sky ship was extremely fast. In an instant it had traveled tens of millions of kilometers. Tuoba Ing let out a long laugh, like a hunter chasing after his prey. His whole body was filled with excitement. You can't escape. I have already sent a message to the people nearby. As long as they receive the news, they will rush over immediately. As if to confirm his words, several powerful auras rushed over from 3 different directions. Su Yu could still vividly remember the aura from one of the directions. Shua shua, Shueyu! The Sword Pavilion's young master's furious roar shook the sky, and it was filled with ghastly killing intent and rage. Because of Shueyu, the stone dragon bone sword was stolen, and he was blamed. Accompanied by Hong Lei, Jian Faming flashed and cut off Su Yu's path. He stared at Su Yu with a sinister look, then pulled out his sword and pointed it at Su Yu. Do you think you can escape? Hong Lei, who was standing at the side, remained silent with a helpless look. He had thought of informing Su Yu, but he didn't have a chance to do so. Behind him was Tuoba Ing, in front of him was Jian Faming, and on both sides were extremely powerful enemies. Any one of them could kill Su Yu. He would not be able to escape today. The 100 Flowers family, the Lu family, and the Shui family could not escape death. Su Yu said calmly, "You've mobilized so many people to intercept me. What's the matter?" Jian Faming snorted. "What do you think?" Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and said, "I owe you steamed buns from a long time ago, haven't I?" Impudent! Jian Faming shook his long sword, and a wisp of sharp and terrifying sword energy pierced through the air, brushing past Su Yu's cheek. Tuoba Ing caught up and said mockingly, "Shueyu, you're about to die. If you dare to touch Jian Xian's stone dragon bone sword, even if a great firmament immortal descends to the mortal world, he won't be able to save you." Swish swish, as soon as he finished speaking, he appeared behind Su Yu like a flash of lightning. His fingers formed into claws as he tried to capture Su Yu. However, just as her 5 fingers touched Su Yu's shoulder, Tuoba Ing suddenly retracted his hand as though he was electrocuted. At the same time, he retreated and shouted, "Who is it? Come out!" Tuoba Ying's palm was covered in a layer of greenish-purple frost that was bone-chilling. Seeing this scene, Tuoba Ying's pupils constricted. Purple ice frost. This is the ultimate skill of one of the top 10 experts of the Sword Pavilion, the Ice Soul Fairy. Crack, a slight freezing sound fell into everyone's ears. The surrounding temperature dropped imperceptibly. The sea of constellations beneath their feet quickly condensed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Snowflakes fell from the sky. Suddenly, the wind returned and the snow flowed. A middle-aged woman wearing a purple-green dress walked out of the wind and snow. Her charm was like that of an immortal in the snow. Tuoba Ying's pupils constricted into the size of a needle. The Ice Soul Immortal. She was the proud daughter of heaven who had shaken the sword loft back then. She was the mysterious woman who had defeated more than 1,000 island lords by herself. After that, she went to the Sword Pavilion and challenged the experts there. None of them were a match for her. From the ordinary disciples to the elite disciples, to the hall masters, no one could withstand more than 3 moves from her. That was until the Sword Pavilion sent out a peak master, the 9th most powerful expert, who possessed the strength of an overlord of the galaxy. That was how he defeated the Ice Soul Immortal. Overnight, the Ice Soul Immortal went from a nobody to one of the top 10 experts in the Sword Pavilion Sea region. The master of the Sword Pavilion, Jian Ruxiong, personally invited her to open the 11th peak and asked her to join the Sword Pavilion and become the peak master of the 11th peak. The Ice Soul Immortal rejected him and left the sea region, disappearing without a trace. 10,000 years had passed. Many people thought that she had died. They did not expect that she would actually appear here. Swoosh, not far away, a few people flew over. Their cultivation levels were all below the 3rd heaven cave abode realm supremacy. Their strength was not eye-catching, but what could not be ignored or even feared was the eye-catching pitch-black waist token hanging on their bodies. Bright stars were engraved on it, carrying a fragrant aura. Everyone in the Sword Pavilion Sea region recognized this token. That was the Star Pavilion. Tuoba Ying was shocked. Even Jian Feiming's expression changed, and he exclaimed, "Star Pavilion?" Then, a shocking scene unfolded before their eyes. 4 members of the Star Pavilion came before the Ice Soul Immortal and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Star Envoy." Tuoba Ying was shocked. "Star Envoy, Ice Soul Immortal, you joined the Star Pavilion?" The so-called Star Envoy was another type of person recruited by the Star Pavilion. They were strong men, real strong men. The Star Pavilion could intimidate the sea region not just by relying on its reputation. Its biggest reliance was its martial power, absolute martial power. And its martial power depended on recruiting peerless strong men. The martial artists who were recruited were collectively known as Star Envoys. They enjoyed all the resources provided by the Star Pavilion and would only fight for the Star Pavilion when necessary. Unexpectedly, the Ice Soul Immortal had rejected the Sword Pavilion and joined the Star Pavilion. 10,000 years had passed, and her aura was far stronger than before. Her strength was unfathomable. However, Tuoba Ying did not understand. He asked, "Ice Soul Immortal, I remember the rules of the Star Pavilion. You should never interfere in the affairs of the sea region. Aren't you breaking the rules by doing this?" The Ice Soul Immortal was as cold as an iceberg. Not only did she not answer, but she did not even look at Tuoba Ying. She came before Su Yu coldly and reached out to block his chest. Her intention to protect him was obvious. Jian Feiming frowned deeply. How could he not be wary of the Star Pavilion's name? However, it was impossible to give up the stone dragon bone sword just like that. "Ice Soul Immortal, are you really going to make an enemy of me, the Sword Pavilion, for a mere ant? I believe that if the Star Pavilion finds out that you have broken the rules of the Star Pavilion, you will be the one to be punished," Jian Feiming said. He winked, and the people who had surrounded him closed in, ready to seize Su Yu by force. At that moment the Ice Soul Immortal finally spoke. As soon as she spoke, the temperature around them plummeted again. Even someone as strong as Audiobook felt a chill run down his spine. He had to use his divine power to protect himself. The level 4 and 5 world venerables of the cavern abodes froze into ice sculptures in an instant. The Ice Soul Immortal glanced at them indifferently and said indifferently, "If the Star Pavilion finds out, they will punish the Sword Pavilion immediately. Those who attack the Star Pavilion's appraisers never end well, and the Sword Pavilion is no exception." Everyone was stunned. Jian Feiming said, "You are an appraiser? All right, I don't intend to attack you, but the trash in your hand." Slap. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the Ice Soul Immortal glared at Jian Feiming fiercely. A wisp of ice turned into a crystal-clear palm, which slapped Jian Feiming's face. It was a resounding slap. Her voice became even colder. "You insulted the Star Pavilion's appraisers. Since you are the young master of the Sword Pavilion, I will teach you a lesson with a slap. If it were anyone else, they would have died." Jian Feiming, who was furious, suddenly sobered up. He stared at Su Yu, his face full of disbelief. Even Audiobook was dumbfounded. He said blankly, He is the Star Pavilion's appraiser? How powerful was the Star Pavilion? Even the Sword Pavilion had to bow down to it. Even though the wings of the Feather God clan were harder than King Kong, they couldn't withstand a casual hit from the Star Pavilion. "What do you think?" The Ice Soul Immortal glanced at Audiobook indifferently and said, "Since you don't know his identity, we can resolve the matter just now by apologizing. If you attack again, it will be seen as a provocation to the Star Pavilion. Even the Sword Pavilion will not be able to withstand the wrath of the Star Pavilion." Jian Feiming's heart turned cold. He knew very well how terrifying the Star Pavilion would be when it was angered. He really didn't have the guts to capture the Star Pavilion's appraiser. "Didn't you hear what I said? Apologize, apologize." The Ice Soul Immortal stared at Jian Feiming and said indifferently, "I don't want to repeat it a third time, if you insist on forcing me to pay with your blood." Upon hearing that, everyone's heart skipped a beat. After hesitating for a moment, the weaker ones forced themselves to lower their heads and bow in apology, offering up resources. After thinking about it, Audiobook clenched his teeth and chose to compromise. He was filled with grief and indignation. At this moment, he wanted to apologize to the murderer of his son. "Shui, Master Shui, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. This is just a small token of my appreciation. I hope it can make it up to you." Audiobook took out a valuable spiritual fruit called the Feather God Fruit. Su Yu finally understood. Mu Songhai must have arranged for the Ice Soul Immortal and the 4 members of the Star Pavilion to protect Su Yu in secret to prevent any accidents from happening. If nothing went wrong, the 4 members of the Star Pavilion must have sneaked into the cave of 10,000 dragons to protect Su Yu from afar. In that case, Su Yu wouldn't stand on ceremony. He accepted the apology and looked at Jian Feiming. The Ice Soul Immortal looked over, the coldness between her brows intensifying. Jian Feiming's face was gloomy. He clenched his teeth and took out a decent spiritual fruit. "Master Shui, it was a misunderstanding just now. I offer this spiritual fruit to you. I hope you will let bygones be bygones." His stiff taste and awkward expression made him look as ugly as if he had just eaten a fly. Haha, an island master apologizes with a spiritual fruit, and the young master of the Sword Pavilion also apologizes with a spiritual fruit. Aren't you afraid of lowering your status? Su Yu said. The killing intent in Jian Feiming's heart was like a suppressed volcano that was about to erupt. He said in a low voice, "I wonder what you want, Master Shui." "Dragon marrow," Su Yu replied without hesitation. Jian Feiming raised his head, his eyes filled with ferocity. Dragon marrow was an important resource of the Sword Pavilion, second only to the stone dragon bone sword. Shui Yu was asking for it. However, when the Ice Soul Immortal looked at him, Jian Feiming had no choice but to swallow his anger and take out a bottle of refined dragon marrow. It was pure and full of energy, equivalent to 20% of the divine dragon's remains. Su Yu's eyes shone as he grabbed it. Together with the 40% he had obtained before, it was enough to completely refine the remaining 1,000 divine paths. Becoming a deity was just around the corner. Master Shui, come back to the starry pavilion with me. Staying here with these vulgar people will only bring shame to your status, the Ice Soul Immortal said. Su Yu had the same intention. The starry pavilion was the best place to leave the Shui family. Whoosh, snowflakes fluttered as the Ice Soul Immortal took Su Yu up into the sky. Just as they were about to leave, the Ice Soul Immortal suddenly frowned and stopped in her tracks. Her cold face was filled with fear. Jian Ruxiong, how long have you been here? Su Yu's expression changed as he looked up. At the end of the snowflakes, a middle-aged man in a purple robe stood high above. He carried a 9-foot-long ancient yellow sword on his back, looking down coldly. He was the master of the sword pavilion, Jian Ruxiong. Jian Ruxiong stepped on the void and walked down. Every step he took caused the whole world to tremble slightly, and the hearts of all living creatures could not help but jump. Every word and action he took affected the vision of heaven and earth. It was a sign that he was approaching the Great Path Law. The Ice Soul Immortal's beautiful face changed drastically. She was extremely serious. You have come into contact with the Great Path Law. You are not far from becoming a divine warrior of the world. Jian Ruxiong walked down with his hands clasped behind his back. He said indifferently, "You are just a small emissary of the Starry Pavilion. You think too highly of yourself." Chapter 1629. If it was Mu Songhai, this sword master would be a bit afraid. But you, who do you think you are? Jian Ruxiong's eyes flashed like lightning. He waved his left palm and an invisible force attacked. The icy fairy's expression changed abruptly. Purple and green frost surged all over her body, and she turned into an 8-sided prism. Creak! A dull sound came from the prism, and several faintly discernible shadows of chains flickered. Cracks densely covered the surface of the prism. Purple-green ice sword. The icy fairy bellowed, and the prism disintegrated itself, fusing into an ice-cold long sword. The sword was long and narrow, emitting a sharp chill. What was even more shocking was that the grade of the sword was not low. It had reached the imperial grade. Jian Ruxiong looked surprised. "Oh? I haven't seen you for 10,000 years, and your cultivation has already reached the level of a bronze overlord? You can instantly form an imperial divine weapon. Not bad. If you challenge Jian Xian again, I believe the 9th peak master will no longer be your match." "But..." Jian Ruxiong's eyes turned cold. "So what? You are nothing in front of me." He put 2 fingers together and pointed them at the air. Mysterious Factions 7 Killing Sword. A solid sword energy, containing an unparalleled will, struck like an ancient torrent. The icy fairy's expression was grave. She bellowed, 3 styles of absolute ice. An extremely powerful overlord aura surged from her body. An ice-cold sword energy radiated in all directions with the power to freeze the world. The 2 sword energies collided in front of everyone. The icy sword energy was like mist, and Jian Ruxiong's sword energy tore a hole in it. The icy fairy yelled anxiously, "Take Master Shui away!" Yes. The 4 members of the Starry Pavilion performed a combined technique. They transformed into a golden tower, protecting Su Yu in the center. The golden tower flickered, traveling hundreds of millions of miles in a flash. Tuoba Ying and Jian Feiming were caught off guard. How could they have expected the seemingly ordinary members of the Starry Pavilion to have such a powerful technique? Seeing that they could not catch up, Jian Ruxiong said calmly, "You can't run away." He looked at the icy fairy. She had swept away the oncoming sword energy with her sword and was standing in front of him, buying time for Shui Yu. Jian Ruxiong's eyes gradually turned cold. He slowly pulled out the dim yellow sword from his back and said, "You seem very proud of your identity as the Starry Pavilion's messenger. However, let me tell you, even if I touch you, the Starry Pavilion will not do anything to me." Zing! A sword cry resounded through the universe, reverberating through the vast sky. The faint yellow sword was held in his hand. The Ice Spirit Fairy felt a sense of danger and said, "Jian Ruxiong, do you think you have the power to fight against the Star Pavilion?" From Jian Ruxiong's words, she could sense Jian Ruxiong's arrogance. He was no longer as respectful towards the Star Pavilion as before. However, the Stellar Pavilion had countless envoys. If they lost her, the Stellar Pavilion might not do anything to Jian Xian. The Starry Shui, but she, the Yu, the One, and the Xian, the One, a Xian, not. And the same thing. She sighed in her heart. Her cold eyes were filled with an unyielding fighting spirit. She pointed at the sword and said, "The great vehicle sword, the treasure bestowed by the Purple Dream Divine Warrior? Well, it's a worthy death." Jian Ruxiong waved his sword. In an instant it was like the setting sun. The dim yellow clouds, the blood-red setting sun, and the blood-red sky formed a desolate and tragic scene. The icy fairy did not retreat. Instead, she advanced. She smiled proudly, like a snow lotus swaying in the snow, blending into the dusk. Heartless, limitless sword. In the dim yellow sunset, the icy fairy's voice echoed, but she was nowhere to be seen. Clang! The sword was returned to its sheath. The dusk faded, leaving only the white clouds. The icy fairy was nowhere to be seen. Jian Ruxiong shook his head. "You overestimate yourself." He shook his chest, leaving a trace of purple and green frost on it. Then, he chased after her. In the distant sky, 4 members of the Starry Pavilion were escorting Suyu. The combined attack they performed was heaven-defying. However, Suyu was keenly aware of the changes in their forms. In just a few breaths they had aged 10 years. The price of performing divine techniques that did not match their cultivation was their lives. "Stop it," Suyu sighed. "Don't waste your lives for me." The 4 members of the Starry Pavilion said expressionlessly, "Master Shui, we have been trained by the Starry Pavilion and have prepared for this day. Please don't make things difficult for us." Suyu shook his head and said, "The Sword Master is taking action personally. You are just wasting your lives for nothing." They looked resolute. "Master Shui, we will die to protect you. The Starry Pavilion will take good care of our loved ones. If we escape, we will lose everything. For you and for us, please continue." Suyu was touched. Because they were weak, they were willing to sacrifice themselves for others, just to reproduce. It might be sad, or it might be respectable, but it was not what Suyu wanted. He pulled out the Beauty Under the Moon sword and swept it. The sharp sword radiance cut a thin crack in the golden tower from the inside out. The 4 people's energies were disrupted, and the golden tower collapsed. "Master Shui, you..." the 4 members of the Starry Pavilion said in surprise. Suyu stood with the sword in his hand. He looked around at the 4 people and said, "Let's go. Go back and tell the cabinet master that I asked you to leave. She won't make things difficult for you." "But..." The 4 members of the Starry Pavilion hesitated. Suyu said, "This is an order." With that, the 4 of them bowed and fled in 4 different directions. "Master Shui, hold on. We will contact the Starry Pavilion immediately and ask for reinforcements." Suyu smiled bitterly. The Starry Pavilion would take several months to reach this place. How could he hold on until the Starry Pavilion came to rescue him? It was better to save himself. He looked around. With an idea in mind, he turned to the northwest and sped away. Before long, Jian Ruxiong and his army caught up to where he was standing. His thunderbolt divine eyes scanned the area and fixed on the northwest. He said, "Go after them." The stone dragon bone sword could not be lost. An hour later, in a sea area that was as dark as ink, there seemed to be a group of savage ferocious beasts hiding in the sea, ready to rush out at any time to devour the creatures flying above. It gave people a great deal of pressure. Jian Ruxiong looked down and asked, "Where is this?" No one replied. Jian Ruxiong shouted, "Who is in charge of this sea area?" Swish. 2 figures walked out. One was Hong Lei and the other was Tian Jinyuan. They were the special envoys in charge of this place, so they were very familiar with this place. Hong Lei cupped his hands and said, "Sir, this is the Evil Ghost Strait, which is 10 billion miles away from the Twin Star Island. It is a famous dangerous place." "Evil Ghost Strait?" Jian Ruxiong murmured as he stared at the dark water. His intuition told him that there were some unknown creatures under the water. He pondered for a moment, then said, "Split up and besiege the Evil Ghost Strait. Not a single shrimp can escape." Yes. No one dared to look down on him. Jian Ruxiong continued, "Have you caught those members of the Starry Pavilion?" Swoosh. An old man in a green robe stepped on the wind and walked over with 4 bloody heads in his hand. He said, "No." "What about the message they sent?" Jian Ruxiong asked. The old man in a green robe opened the palm of his other hand. 4 twinkling stars were flickering. As he clenched his fist, the lights were extinguished. "Very good." Jian Ruxiong was relieved. "Although I'm not afraid of the Starry Pavilion, it's better not to attract their attention before I get the rock dragon bone sword." At this point, all the members of the Starry Pavilion were killed. No one knew that Jian Xian was brazen enough to surround the Starry Pavilion's appraiser, Shuiyu. Jian Ruxiong fixed his gaze on the dark water and said, "Qingning, go down there and capture that kid." The old man in a green robe nodded. His body surged with the power of space and instantly disappeared. The divine Tao that he cultivated was the Tao of space. The green figure appeared in the pitch-black Evil Ghost Strait. His old yet sharp eyes scanned the surroundings. His eyes contained the power of space as well. He could see through solid objects in the surroundings with a single glance. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and had a mocking look in his eyes. "Kid, do you think you have the right to escape from me?" He stared at a seemingly solid stone wall and blinked. Instantly, the chaotic power of space around the stone wall rippled. The stone wall exploded with a boom. Whoosh, a figure fled in panic from the stone wall like a clever little fish. That figure was none other than Shuiyu. "Still trying to escape?" Qingning sneered, "Space cage." He bellowed. The space around Su Yu shrank rapidly, trying to trap him within it. Strangely, Shuiyu seemed to be extremely sensitive to the power of space. Before the space cage was formed, he had already escaped from a gap. Qingning was slightly surprised when he missed his target. As a bronze-level overlord, Shuiyu's use of the space divine Tao was marvelous. Qingning was surprised that he missed his target. Seeing Su Yu slip deeper into the canyon, the space around Qingning filled up as he used space teleportation again. The next moment, he appeared in front of Su Yu without warning, cutting off his path. At the same time, a chain formed by the power of space danced and twirled like a silver snake. Su Yu's pupils shone as he stabbed the beauty under the moonlight at a certain point in the chain. The formless power of space was slightly bent by the beauty under the moonlight. Seizing the opportunity, Su Yu twisted his body to avoid the entanglement of the space chain. Qingning was shocked. "You can identify the weakness of my power of space? Are you a space divine Tao too?" Su Yu said nothing as he continued to drill deeper into the canyon. Qingning snorted. "I don't believe you can escape." "Boundless nature." Qingning bellowed. A giant net weaved by the power of space gathered under his feet and enveloped Su Yu with a whoosh. Its range was so wide that Su Yu had nowhere to hide. He could only dodge back and forth in the net as if he were treading on thin ice. Qingning sneered. He hooked his right index finger and the net undulated like waves. Su Yu's right ankle was entangled. Seizing the opportunity, the whole net rapidly contracted and wrapped around Su Yu. Su Yu knew he was in trouble. If he was caught, he would never be able to turn the tables. Looking at the beauty under the moonlight in his hand, Su Yu gritted his teeth and raised his sword to cut off his right foot. Despite the intense pain, Su Yu merely frowned and slid down expressionlessly. At the critical moment when the giant net was contracting, he escaped. Swish! Su Yu quickly slid down the precipitous cliff and landed on a flat, giant rock. The starlight grass grew densely on the boulder, making it stand out from the surroundings. However, after failing to capture Su Yu again and again, Qing Ying was already angry. He did not calmly observe the surroundings, nor did he realize that there was something wrong with the flat land. Enough! Qing Ying shouted angrily. He took a deep breath and countless bubbles gathered around him. Chapter 1630. Those were all compressed space energy bubbles. Once they collided with something, they would burst open immediately, and the space energy inside would erupt, causing a powerful space vibration. With Su Yu's cultivation, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Go! Rumble! Thousands of space bubbles surged towards Su Yu, bursting at the same time when they were thousands of feet away from him. Boom! 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 It was as if hundreds of thunderbolts had exploded at the same time. The powerful space explosions shook the stable space in all directions. Su Yu felt space of different sizes squeezing him from all directions. His whole body was about to explode, and the pain was unbearable. It was 100 times worse than severing his own limbs. Even though Su Yu had been seriously injured countless times, he could not help but let out a muffled groan. Blood flowed freely from his mouth, and many parts of his body had burst open. His skin and flesh were torn apart. However, even though he was seriously injured, Su Yu's lips curled into a mysterious smile. The power is very suitable. Very good. Su Yu said with a smile, enduring the pain. Qing Ying was startled, and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean?" Rumble. A loud noise was heard. It was not the sound of the remaining space bubbles bursting, but the sound of a giant object rubbing against the cliff. At the same time, the giant platform rose on its own. To be precise, it rose up. A slope was raised from the flat surface, facing Qing Ying. At this moment, he saw a pair of huge, dim yellow eyes hidden under the slope. At the same time, a huge, elongated body was swimming in the pitch-black canyon. Suddenly, Qing Ying's whole body trembled, and the outline of a giant snake appeared in his mind. At the same time, Su Yu, who was seriously injured, flew up and shouted at the giant snake, "Ha ha, stupid thing, you harmed our Shui family in the past. Today I have brought people to take revenge. Prepare to die." Although the snake's strength was high, its spiritual intelligence was average. The giant snake turned its eyes and stared at Su Yu. Hiss! It flicked its tongue, and the hostility in its eyes intensified. Apparently, it still remembered the creature who cheated all the starlight grass half a year ago. As the king of this place, what made it even angrier was that Shui Yu had brought strong people here, which was undoubtedly a provocation. Hiss! Its huge body swam violently, and its ferocious head swooped up and bit Qing Ying. It knew very well who posed a greater threat and who it should eat first. Qing Ying didn't pay much attention to this snake, but when it rushed over, it emitted an overlord-level savage aura. Qing Ying was shocked. There was actually an overlord-class sea beast hidden in the Sword Pavilion Sea region? In the blink of an eye, Qing Ying immediately used space manipulation and teleported away from this place. However, this giant snake was extremely fast. Not waiting for the green shadow to teleport away, the ferocious mouth enveloped him. Qing Ying was startled and hurriedly shouted, "Wait! I'm not with him. I'm here to kill him." The gigantic snake's yellowish pupils revealed an anthropomorphic mockery as it said in human language, "Do you think this king is a fool? If you really want to kill him, then why did you use spatial force to sneak attack me?" Qing Ying was at a loss for words. He had attacked Su Yu in a hurry. How could he have known that there was an overlord-level ferocious beast sleeping here? At that moment, he finally understood Su Yu's true intention of retreating. If Su Yu had been hiding on this giant snake's head from the very beginning, Qing Ying would have been cautious and would have carefully examined the snake's head. However, it was Su Yu's retreat step by step that paralyzed Qing Ying, causing him to attack and accidentally injure the giant snake. Now that he thought about it, Su Yu's hiding here was a trap from the very beginning. No, Qing Ying roared. However, the giant snake did not listen to his advice and swallowed Qing Ying. But Qing Ying was, after all, a bronze overlord of the same realm. He would not die immediately after being swallowed. Moreover, he was proficient in the space divine path. How could he be destroyed so easily? Puff! A bloody hole suddenly burst open on the giant snake's neck, and a powerful space fluctuation came from inside. Qing Ying used the space divine path to teleport directly, but found that there was another universe in the giant snake's belly, and the space teleportation was obstructed. In desperation, he could only choose to use the space divine technique to break open the giant snake. Hiss! The giant snake was in pain, and its hostility was aroused. The black scales on its neck turned into pitch-black poisonous snakes, which blocked the gap and drilled into it to bite Qing Ying. Qing Ying naturally would not resign himself to death. He operated the space divine path to resist tenaciously. The two bronze overlords were fighting each other, so much so that they forgot about Su Yu for the time being. Everything was just as Su Yu had expected. Although the journey was dangerous, it went smoothly. Enduring the pain all over his body, Su Yu looked at the pitch-black depths of the cliff and continued to dive down. The deeper he went, the darker it became, and the colder it became. When he reached an unknown depth, a pitch-black cave came into view. The size of the cave was similar to the giant snake's head. A snake cave? Su Yu was not surprised. He suppressed the coldness and flashed into the cave. A faint snake odor assaulted his nostrils. It was indeed a snake cave. I hope my guess is right, Su Yu said to himself. He stepped inside and kept moving forward along the dark and winding snake cave. The snake cave stretched for hundreds of millions of miles. Just when Su Yu was wondering whether the snake cave had an end, a faint light appeared in front of him. Not a surprise. Su Yu came to the cave entrance and looked at the vast sea and the blue sky outside. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. This snake dominated the evil ghost strait, so there was no reason it would not have prepared a way out for itself. The other end of the snake cave was the way to escape to heaven. Standing at the cave entrance, Su Yu looked around and found that he had already left the waters of the Twin Star Island. He did not know where it led. There were thousands of islands nearby, big and small. All kinds of creatures grew on them, and there were as many as the hairs on a cow. If Su Yu hid among them, Jian Xian would have to spend a lot of effort to find him. He had finally escaped to heaven. However, unexpectedly, Su Yu did not step out of the cave. Instead, he returned to the tunnel and walked back. After a long time, he returned to the evil ghost strait again. Looking up at the canyon where the fierce battle had stopped, he stepped out of the snake cave and continued to sink. The extreme coldness completely froze Su Yu's body, turning him into an ice sculpture and falling into the depths of the canyon. Su Yu also restrained all of his aura. Even his soul was tightly contained within his soul, not emitting the slightest bit. He could only wait quietly. After a long time, an extremely violent fluctuation came from midair in the canyon. A scene of dusk fell eerily in the underwater canyon, accompanied by the horrified hissing of the giant snake. Soon, a giant snake's corpse broke into several pieces and fell into the depths of the canyon. The master of Jian Xian had struck. In midair in the canyon, Jian Ruxiong kept his long sword and healed Qing Ying's injuries from a distance. Qing Ying's body was covered in rotten flesh, caused by the fierce snake venom. His face was ashen. To be exact, he was flustered and exasperated. Shameless B*****. How dare he plot against me? I will tear him into pieces. Qingying was furious. Jian Ruxiong's eyes flickered. He had asked Qingying to strike because he had sensed danger. It seemed like he had made the right choice. It was unexpected that a bronze overlord level sea beast was hidden in the sea. Fortunately, the sea beast had been distracted by Qingying, and Jian Ruxiong had been able to kill it easily. Now only Suyu was left. Split up and look for Suyu. Don't let go of any traces, Jian Ruxiong ordered. The crowd quickly split up, looking for Suyu. Before long, Tuoba Ing was the first to discover something strange in the depths of the canyon. He said, "Sword Master, there is a cave here, and Shui Yu's aura is lingering nearby." Jian Ruxiong walked over and sized it up. His expression changed slightly. "Oh no, let's go after him. He might have escaped." An hour later, a group of people stood at the other end of the cave, looking at the boundless sea. All of them had grave expressions on their faces. The snake cave was connected to the left and right sides. The strangest thing was that the inside of the snake cave had been enhanced by the giant snake with the law of space. Although the snake cave didn't look long, it actually passed through a large area of space. This place was hundreds of billions of miles away from the twin star island. Suyu had undoubtedly entered the sea in front of them. Finding him would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. The Thousand-Star Island. Jian Ruxiong recognized this place. It was an island at the edge of the Sword Pavilion, which was occupied by many weak influences. If Suyu had escaped into the Thousand-Star Island, it would not be easy to find him in a short time. However, they had to find him no matter how difficult it was. "Convey my order. Inform all the island masters of the Thousand-Star Island to come and see me," Jian Ruxiong ordered. All the people of the Sword Pavilion flew to various islands to convey Jian Ruxiong's order. There was only one reason why they were asked to see him. He wanted to use all the influences of the Thousand-Star Island to search for Suyu one by one. Jian Ruxiong's eyes were full of murderous intent. "I'll dig you out even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Suyu, who they had been searching for all over the world, was still sinking quietly at the bottom of the sea after the evil ghost Strait had quietened down. The difference was that he had removed the ice with the mortal fairy's strength. He was sitting with his legs crossed, ready to train. He had no intention of leaving the evil ghost Strait. This was because Suyu knew very well that although the Sword Pavilion was huge, it was under its control everywhere. On the sea, he would be wanted by all the influences affiliated to the Sword Pavilion. Moreover, with the strength of Jian Ruxiong and the accompanying peak masters, it was impossible for him to hide his tracks completely. He might be able to escape for 10 days, half a month, or even a few months, but it was impossible for him to escape completely. There was only one place that was the safest, and that was this place. When everyone assumed that Suyu had left the snake cave and was hiding in a safer sea, Suyu did the opposite and was hiding in the depths of the evil ghost Strait, which seemed to be a hopeless place. This was the best place to train. Suyu took out a bottle of refined dragon marrow and 2 huge pieces of the dragon's body. He took a deep breath and looked forward to it. He had been waiting for this day for too long. Become a deity and rescue Xiaojingyu. Become a deity and restore his strength to its peak. With an unprecedented desire, Suyu poured a bottle of dragon marrow on his body. Sizzle! The refined dragon marrow was far purer than the dragon bones on the Double Star Island. Layers of green smoke rose from the surface of Suyu's body, causing him to groan in pain. It felt like fresh volcanic magma had been poured on his head, and the pain was unbearable. Hiss! Suyu took a deep breath. Not only did he not flinch, but he poured another bottle. This was because Suyu felt the crazy refinement of his divine path. The unparalleled pleasure had completely offset the pain. Chapter 1631. At the same time, the Thousand-Star Island began a mighty search operation. From the masters of the island to the ordinary people, everyone was mobilized. Shui Yu's portrait was distributed to every living creature in just one day. Moreover, Jian Xian offered an extremely high reward. Anyone who discovered Su Yu's whereabouts would be rewarded with an imperial divine weapon. The person who captured Su Yu alive was the 11th peak master of Jian Xian. Such a tempting reward not only stirred the Thousand-Star Island, but also the islands tens of billions of miles away. They all joined in the search for Shui Yu without hesitation. In a single night, numerous small searching boats appeared in all kinds of uninhabited seas. The remote seabed was also full of searching experts. Su Yu was hiding on an uninhabited island. Even if he were to hide in the underwater ruins, he would not be able to escape the search. The search operation was in full swing here. On the Double Star Island side, they finally noticed something strange. Everyone looked as if the sky was collapsing. The Baihua family, Lu family, and Murong family, who were supposed to leave, all fled back to the Double Star Island. Because they were intercepted by Jian Xian halfway. After the people of Jian Xian verified their identities, they began a massacre without saying a word. Unexpectedly, the people of the three families all suffered varying degrees of casualties. It was unknown why Jian Xian attacked, but it was foreseeable that the three families had been ambushed. Jian Xian's desire to kill them was undeniable. The three masters, together with Shui Yuntian, paced back and forth in the living room, extremely uneasy. Beep beep, the communication pendants on their bodies were beeping incessantly. But every time they looked at the jade pendants, the expression on their faces grew uglier. After they fled back here, they arranged for a group of suicide squads to spread out in all directions to scout out the situation. But whether it was the Baihua family, the Lu family, or the Murong family, the people they sent out either sank into the sea, their lives unknown, or they received a reply from the ambushers. Combined with the investigation of the three great families, they were shocked to find that, with the Double Star Island as the center, 100 million square miles had been sealed off. No family force was allowed to leave. Baihualan, aren't you cousins with the 8th peak master of Jianxian? You often visit each other and have a harmonious relationship. Why don't you ask her why Jianxian is trying to kill us? Lu Zhongtian's brows were full of anxiety. His divination didn't yield any clues. Not only were there too many participants in this matter, but more importantly, the people who were involved were all the top experts in the sword loft. It's useless. I've already contacted her, but she only replied with one sentence, telling me to take care of myself. Bai Hualan's head was in a mess. In other words, he was abandoning her and cutting all ties with her. Inside the house, Murong Fengfeng was relatively calm. He pondered and said, "Everyone, since Jian Xian wants to kill us, why did he suddenly stop killing us when he formed an encirclement and only trapped us instead of killing us?" Lu Zhongtian's eyes flickered as he said, "I think the mastermind is most likely being delayed by other matters and has no time to deal with us. Once he pulls his hand back, he will definitely kill us." Murong Feng nodded. "That's right, so the only thing we need to do now is to save ourselves." His eyes glowed as he looked at Shui Yuntian and said, "Brother Shui, at this moment of life and death, I hope you won't save us. Quickly ask Shui Yu for help, then he can ask the Star Pavilion for help. That way, we still have a chance of survival. Otherwise, with Jian Xian killing us like dogs, we won't be able to escape death." Shui Yuntian smiled bitterly. "To tell you the truth, Shui Yu has left Twin Star Island recently." "What? Why would he leave at this critical juncture?" Bai Hualan was shocked. "Why would he leave? And where is he going?" Shui Yuntian sighed. "He went out to travel. Only he knows where he is going." How could a father not know where his son is going? It was a question filled with questions, but in their panic, they did not hear the underlying meaning. Murong Feng pondered and said, "There's no hurry. Even if Shui Yu, my dear nephew, leaves, if Brother Shui asks for help from the Stellar Pavilion, the Stellar Pavilion will definitely not stand idly by since Shui Yu is a member of the Shui family. The rest saw the Star Pavilion as their only hope, and they all looked at Shui Yuntian hopefully. Feeling helpless, Shui Yuntian said, "All right, I'll try." The Shui family had stationed 1 or 2 members of the Shui family on the random star island all year round to gather important resources. If he could contact them now, he could convey the matter here to the Star Pavilion. However, after imbuing it with divine energy, the Shui family's communication artifact remained motionless. Shui Yuntian's face darkened. After a few attempts, he sat down dejectedly and let out a long sigh. The communication to the outside world is also blocked. Jian Xian has come prepared. What? Even the communication to the outside world was blocked? The rest of the Path Masters contacted their families one after another, and the results were exactly the same. Jian Xian must have used a large-scale formation to block the communication between this area and the outside world. Everyone was in despair. They were like turtles in a jar, and their life and death depended on when Jian Xian would make a move. As for Jian Xian, he was still searching for Su Yu with great fanfare. In just 3 short months, he had covered the entire Jian Xian's territorial waters. Most of the islands joined in the operation. Even those who had visited the Shui family joined in the search for Su Yu for the sake of their own interests. The scale of the search and capture operation exceeded all previous ones, and it was unprecedented. At the moment, Su Yu was the public enemy. Although the Jian Xian was large, there was no place for Su Yu to hide. However, there was no news of Su Yu in such an unprecedented search and capture operation. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Near the Thousand-Star Island, all the islands and even the seabed were dug up, and everyone was investigated. Not a trace of Su Yu was found. Jian Ruxiong could not sit still anymore. He believed that no one would dare to protect Shui Yu, and he believed that Su Yu could not have left no trace in such a large search and capture operation. But why was there no trace of him? Could it be that someone had secretly colluded to help Su Yu escape? As he thought of this, Jian Ruxiong's brows furrowed deeply. It had been 3 months, and they had not found Su Yu. This meant that the possibility of finding Su Yu was next to nothing. If the ancient records are correct, that stone dragon bone sword should be the dragon clan's most precious treasure, the royal dragon sword. It is the token of the previous dragon emperors, and the one who holds the dragon sword is the current dragon emperor. Jian Ruxiong's face was gloomy. That was the reason why he was determined to retrieve the sword at all costs. With the royal dragon sword, he would have nothing to fear even if he was the divine warrior of the world, let alone a mere branch of the Star Pavilion. Unfortunately, things did not go as he had hoped. The royal dragon sword was nowhere to be found. He was still an ordinary master of the Sword Pavilion, and he still had to lower his head in front of the Star Pavilion. Deep anger surged in his heart. "Let's go back." Jian Ruxiong gave up on the search, and his words were filled with murderous intent. Kill them all. Especially the Shui family. They had snatched away the most precious treasure that could change his life, so they had to die. Jian Feiming's face was also gloomy, and his murderous intent was overflowing. Jian Xian's opportunity to rise in the world had been destroyed by a few ants. He hated them so much that he would not be able to vent his anger if he did not skin them alive and pull out their bones. Jian Xian, who had found nothing, returned to the evil ghost straight through the snake cave. Jian Ruxiong's face was gloomy. Without saying a word, he rushed to the surface of the sea and led the crowd towards the Double Star Island. Tuoba Ing followed behind. When he passed by the strait, he stopped in his tracks. He did not rush out of the sea with them, but stared at the depths of the canyon with a fervent look. He clearly remembered that the bronze overlord giant snake had fallen into the depths of the strait. Jian Xian was anxious to capture Su Yu, so he did not keep the item. Any part of the bronze overlord giant snake is a priceless treasure. Moreover, if I can extract the essence of the giant snake from it, I might have an opportunity to break through to the overlord level. Tuoba Ing hesitated for a long time before diving down stealthily. However, he was not the only one who was smart. Master of the Tuoba family, what are you planning to do? Jian Feiming stared at him with a sneer, his hands behind his back. Tuoba Ying's body stiffened, and he immediately found an excuse. I want to go down and check. What if Shui Yu is hiding down there? Jian Feiming smiled faintly and waved his hand. Go and help my father to besiege the Double Star Island. Bronze-level living beings are also rare treasures for Jian Xian. You are not qualified to touch them yet. Although Tuoba Ing was furious, he had no choice but to leave the place obediently. Jian Feiming stared at his back with a sarcastic smile. Then, he dived into the deepest part of the canyon. For a level 2 cave mansion world venerable like him, the frigid cold air was nothing. After a few breaths, he reached the deepest part of the canyon. As expected, the giant snake's body, which had been broken into several pieces, was still lying quietly at the bottom of the canyon. Jian Feiming took out a storage artifact and stored the snake's bodies one by one. As he was storing them, Jian Feiming suddenly saw a statue sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the canyon. The dust at the bottom of the sea covered the statue's body, burying half of it in the mud. The statue's whole body was flickering with thousands of lights of different colors, looking extremely mysterious. What was even more peculiar was that a faintly discernible old oil lamp was suspended above the statue's head, flickering and silent from time to time. The oil lamp burned everything around it. Divine energy, cold ice, seawater. After burning, wisps of weak 9-colored energy were emitted from the oil lamp. The 9-colored energy was extremely mysterious. When it rose, it turned into rain, when it fell, it turned into dust, and in between, it turned into various small living beings. It was extraordinary, as if this wisp of energy had created a small world. Jian Feiming was incomparably stunned. Many pieces of information flashed through his mind until an item appeared in his mind, causing him to cry out in surprise, Heavens, this is the first Qi that created the world, absolute beginning Qi. His expression was filled with excitement. Absolute beginning Qi, the mysterious Qi that filled the entire absolute beginning realm. There were too many uses for this item. It was said that many sovereigns of heaven and earth bitterly searched for absolute beginning Qi. It was said that it was a necessary item for one to reach a higher level. However, every strand of it was extremely precious. The Purple Dream Sovereign had once publicly offered a bronze overlord pet as a reward for a wisp of absolute beginning Qi. However, the statue in front of him wasn't just a wisp. It was an endless stream of absolute beginning Qi. He couldn't believe his eyes. As intelligent as he was, he immediately realized what kind of earth-shattering treasure he had found. Not only would the sovereigns of heaven and earth fight for it, but even higher existences would also join in the fight. In his excitement, he let out a low roar and pounced forward, hugging the statue. A crazed joy appeared on his face. Ha ha, I, Jian Feiming, also have great luck. I actually found a heaven-defying treasure. Chapter 1632. This. Jian Feiming was startled and looked at the statue in confusion. Patter. All of a sudden, the dirt on the statue peeled off, revealing the inside of the statue. However, it was not a lifeless statue. It was a body of flesh and blood. Who is it? Jian Feiming's scalp went numb as he retreated quickly. He could not understand why there was a living creature at the bottom of the uninhabited valley. What was even more incomprehensible was that such a living creature could produce Genesis energy on its own. Patter. As the dirt on the statue fell off, its face was revealed. Jian Feiming was shocked when he saw it. Shuiyu? It's you! He could not believe his eyes. Jian Xian had searched half of the sea area for Shuiyu, but he had been right under their noses. Even Jian Ruxiong himself did not think of this possibility, let alone Jian Ruxiong. Shuiyu seemed to have entered a mysterious state. His body was glowing brightly, and the oil lamp above his head was burning brighter and brighter. Jian Feiming had never heard of such a scene before. After a moment of shock, Jian Feiming's face was filled with ecstasy again. Ha 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 ha, this is heaven's will. Jian Feiming could not help but laugh heartily. If they had not lost the stone dragon bone sword, how could they have found Shuiyu, a living treasure? Shuiyu, you made Jian Xian glorious. Jian Feiming grabbed Su Yu's shoulder and looked up. It was as if Jian Xian was about to break through the bottom of the sea and soar into the sky. However, just as he grabbed Su Yu's shoulder, Su Yu, who had his eyes closed, opened them slowly and said calmly, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." A spark fell from the ancient oil lamp above his head and landed on the back of Jian Feiming's hand. Jian Feiming was caught off guard. In shock, he immediately retracted his hand and shook off the spark. However, the seemingly weak spark seemed to have fused into Jian Feiming's flesh and could not be shaken off. Realizing that something was wrong, Jian Feiming immediately used the divine energy in his body. However, the spark did not go out. Instead, it continued to spread. The spark, which was the size of a sesame seed, became the size of a blueberry in the blink of an eye. Then, it grew to the size of a child's eye and spread to the entire back of his hand. To Jian Feiming's horror, the back of his hand turned into a 9-colored gas. It was the Genesis energy. Little bastard! Quickly take back the flames. Jian Feiming was extremely frightened, and he kicked Su Yu. In the end, another spark landed on the back of his foot. Thud, in the blink of an eye, his entire right leg ignited with primordial qi. Quick, retract it. Jian Feiming's pupils shrank as the flames on his hands and feet quickly spread to his entire body. He roared angrily, while his sword-shaped pupils shot out streaks of sharp sword energy toward Su Yu's head. He wanted to kill Su Yu in order to stop the flames from burning. However, when the sword energy was 3 inches away from Su Yu, another spark shot out from the oil lamp and landed on the sword energy. In an instant, the sword qi turned into primordial qi. At the same time, the flames followed the source of the sword qi and ignited his eyes. With a poochie sound, Jian Feiming's eyes were also burnt to ashes, leaving only 2 pitch-black skull holes. The flames flowed from his eyes and quickly spread inside his head, igniting his entire head. Not long after, Jian Feiming let out a blood-curdling scream as he was engulfed in flames. Amidst the raging flames, it was incinerated into 9-colored gas until it disappeared. Su Yu closed his eyes calmly. 3 inches away from his body, tens of thousands of dazzling rays of divine light flickered intensely. From afar it looked like a colorful egg with a myriad of colors. Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, tens of thousands of feet tall virtual shadows appeared around the egg. Each of them was extremely solid, as if they were real. One of them was tens of thousands of feet tall, like a crane among chickens. It had black hair and black eyes, looking down on the world with disdain. Its whole body exuded the supreme majesty of a king. The only one that could stand shoulder to shoulder with it was another existence that was also tens of thousands of feet tall. Its whole body was surrounded by the 5 colors of purple, red, white, green, and black. It was mysterious and abstruse. 2 tens of thousands of feet tall divine shadows and a 10,000 feet tall giant surrounded Su Yu like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. Su Yu's body gradually floated into the air. He slowly straightened his body and weaved signs with his hands, making many mysterious gestures around his body. The tens of thousands of virtual shadows followed Su Yu's lead, closing their eyes and weaving signs. Their movements were orderly, as if each of the virtual shadows had maintained a high degree of synchronization with Su Yu. In the midst of the mysterious gestures, one mysterious concept after another was unleashed. Su Yu's body seemed to be guided by something, and his body slowly floated to the surface of the sea. The tens of thousands of figures floated together. Such a scene was like the flight of tens of thousands of gods. It was breathtaking, magnificent, and magnificent. At the same time, Jian Ruxiong was furious, and a great army pressed on. The overwhelming number of Jianxian's strong men covered hundreds of millions of miles of Twin Star Island. The people of Jianxian, who had surrounded but not attacked, also quickly retreated. All living creatures were forced to stay within 10 miles of Twin Star Island. The creatures of Twin Star Island all felt the pressure from their souls. It's over, Jianxian is going to massacre the city. What have we done wrong? Why does Jianxian want to kill us all? A small force that had tried to break through the encirclement and failed roared with its defeated soldiers. We worked like cattle and horses, thinking that we had enough restraint. Haha, we didn't know that Jianxian only regarded us as dogs. Angry roars of grief echoed throughout Twin Star Island. What answered them was the cold faces of the people of Jianxian, as well as deep expectations. Every massacre meant a windfall for them. Clang! The loud sound of a sword being drawn resounded in the sky above Twin Star Island. A dim yellow sword descended like dusk. In that dusk, a majestic figure stood. A pair of disdainful and cold eyes pierced through the dusk, overlooking Twin Star Island with a bloody light. Greetings, Sword Master! The sky was filled with shouts, covering the sun and resounding in the sky. Jian Ruxiong coldly looked down, like the god of fate that controlled the lives of the common people. He said indifferently and ruthlessly, Jianxian hasn't made a move for so long that you have forgotten who gave you everything. Stealing Jianxian's stone dragon bone sword and digging up Jianxian's dragon bones. Who gave you the courage? Who gave you the guts? An empty and cold voice echoed in the sky. When the creatures of Twin Star Island heard this, they felt as if they were carrying several stars on their back. Even the powerful First Heaven Cave World Venerables found it hard to breathe. After a deep sigh, Jian Ruxiong said indifferently, Today, Jianxian will make another move to remind the sea creatures who their master is. He closed his eyes and said ruthlessly, Kill, leave no one alive. The people of Jianxian licked their lip. In their eyes, the island forces were like pigs and dogs. After killing them, they could plunder their resources. The people of Jianxian in the sky pounced down like locusts. In an instant, screams filled the sky, and blood splattered everywhere. Twin Star Island became hell on earth. Jian Ruxiong stood on the Mahayana sword and fixed his gaze on the Shui residence. A cruel light flashed in his eyes. You sure are patient. From the beginning to the end, the Shui family, Lu family, and Murong family did not show up. Sword light flashed under Jian Ruxiong's feet, and he appeared in front of the Shui residence's hall with his hands behind his back. A strong gust of wind rose from his body, shattering the giant door of the hall. In the hall, a dense group of people stared at the sword master who had appeared. However, the fear they imagined did not appear. Instead, they were all calm. Jian Ruxiong frowned slightly. This was not the result he wanted. He scanned the people present one by one. Suddenly, his eyes seemed to catch something, and he looked back. He saw a strange person. Her seat was ordinary, but Shui Yuntian, Bai Hualan, Lu Zhongtian, and Murong Feng were slightly leaning towards her. It was as if she was the master of the hall. We haven't seen each other for thousands of years. Sword Master is much more powerful than before. An unfamiliar voice floated into his ears. To be exact, it was a familiar voice. Jian Ruxiong was slightly startled. At this moment, his gaze finally landed on that person. However, with just one glance, Jian Ruxiong's eyelids suddenly twitched. He instinctively bent his knees and was about to kneel. However, as he knelt, he hesitated for a moment and stood up again. The coldness on his face was replaced by a trace of seriousness and fear. He cupped his fists and said, Greetings, Star Pavilion Master. That person was none other than the renowned Stellar Pavilion's Pavilion Master, Mu Songhai, who deterred the Sword Pavilion's sea region. She had personally come to Twin Star Island. The seemingly calm Jian Ruxiong felt a huge wave in his heart. Firstly, why was the Star Pavilion here? Secondly, why did Mu Songhai, who had been in seclusion all year round, come here personally. Mu Songhai's old face had a faintly discernible coldness. He sighed and said, I'm afraid the person you don't want to see the most is me, right? Jian Ruxiong said, Pavilion Master, what are you saying? It was because of your support back then that the Sword Pavilion was established. Back then, many forces fought for this sea area. The Sword Pavilion was only able to gain a foothold with the support of the Star Pavilion. Mu Songhai shook his head and said, I don't deserve it. How can the Star Pavilion help the Sword Pavilion? Don't flatter me. Jian Ruxiong didn't deny it. The current Sword Pavilion indeed didn't need to be respectful to the Star Pavilion like before. He narrowed his eyes and said, Pavilion Master, why did you come to Twin Star Island? Mu Songhai raised his eyes and stared at him. Why do you think I'm sitting here? Of course, it was because of the Twin Star Island. Jian Ruxiong was confused. He had clearly blocked the news. Who passed the news to the Star Pavilion? For the master of the Stellar Pavilion to make a move personally for an ordinary appraiser, it was extremely illogical. Jian Ruxiong said, Pavilion Master, these people have made a big mistake. I'm preparing to punish them. If you plead for them, I can give you face and forgive them this time. If possible, he didn't want to fight Mu Songhai, an old monster who had lived for countless years. Anyway, it wouldn't be too late to slaughter the 4 island forces after Mu Songhai left. Mu Songhai stood up and looked down. He couldn't see her eyes clearly, but he could feel her threatening aura. I think you misunderstood me. I'm not asking you to spare them. I'm asking you to leave Twin Star Island immediately. The difference between request and request was like the difference between clouds and mud. Jian Ruxiong narrowed his eyes and was about to refute, but Mu Songhai said again, Secondly, I want to ask you for one person. If I can't get him, I'll slaughter the entire Sword Pavilion. What? Jian Ruxiong's heart suddenly jumped. He thought that no matter how strong the Star Pavilion was, they wouldn't dare to do anything to the Sword Pavilion. But the latter words were beyond Jian Ruxiong's expectations. The Star Pavilion was going to slaughter the entire Sword Pavilion for one person? As one of the few people who had come into contact with Mu Songhai, Jian Ruxiong knew very well that Mu Songhai always did what he said. He was not lying when he said he would slaughter them. Jian Ruxiong's aura couldn't help but weaken a little. There was only one question in his mind. Chapter 1633. He couldn't figure out when Jian Xian had hidden or captured such an important person from the Star Pavilion. He thought of the Ice Fairy, but he denied it. A mere messenger of the Star Pavilion was not even as important as an appraiser. Even an appraiser couldn't make Mu Songhai show up in person, let alone kill Jian Xian at all costs. Therefore, Shui Yu's name flashed through his mind. But who else could it be? Pavilion Master, please tell me. If you are looking for someone, Jian Xian may be able to help. Jian Ruxiong was suspicious. Mu Songhai's face was cold. I am looking for the Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master. What? Even Jian Ruxiong was shocked. The Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master had a high status. Even 10 appraisers couldn't compare to him. The Deputy Pavilion Master was Jian Xian's first peak master. No wonder Mu Songhai had come out in person. If it were Jian Ruxiong, he would have come out as well. However, Jian Ruxiong was shocked that he hadn't even met the Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master. Why did Mu Songhai ask him for the Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master? Pavilion Master, forgive me. I'm sorry that the Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master is missing. But you are asking the wrong person, aren't you? Jian Ruxiong said. I'm not wrong. Mu Songhai walked over, his aura gradually rising. I received news that Jian Xian has captured the Star Pavilion's Deputy Pavilion Master, and even offered a reward to many islands. He stared at Jian Ruxiong, and the unfriendliness in his eyes grew stronger. Jian Ruxiong, do you think that after so many years, Jian Xian has developed into a towering tree and can look down on the Star Pavilion? Jian Ruxiong's mind went blank. His first reaction was that Mu Songhai had found the wrong person. No matter how ambitious Jian Ruxiong was, it was impossible for him to capture the Star Pavilion's deputy pavilion master before he became powerful. But then, a second thought appeared in his mind. Could it be that Mu Songhai had misunderstood? The person he wanted to capture was Su Yu, an ordinary appraiser. Pavilion master, please calm down. Jian Ruxiong took half a step back and explained, the person I'm arresting is Shui Yu, an appraiser of your pavilion. However, he stole something that belongs to our Jian pavilion first. As for the vice pavilion master, I've never seen him before. Hee. Mu Songhai coldly smiled. Who told you that Shui Yu is just an appraiser? Jian Ruxiong was stunned. Shui Yu was not an appraiser? Then who was he? He had been wondering why the Star Pavilion would invite an ordinary young man to be their Star Pavilion's appraiser, given how picky they were. It seemed like there was a misunderstanding. If that was the case, capturing Shui Yu would be even more logical. However, Mu Songhai's next words caused Jian Ruxiong to fall into extreme shock. Not only is Shui Yu a high-level treasure appraiser of the Star Pavilion, but he's also the vice pavilion master of the Star Pavilion. Bang! It was as if thousands of thunderbolts were ringing in Jian Ruxiong's mind, blasting his consciousness into chaos. Shui Yu was the deputy pavilion master of the Star Pavilion? A young man in his 20s? He was in shock and did not come to his senses for a long time. Mu Songhai was filled with cold, murderous intent. Jian Ruxiong, I only have one question for you. Where did you take the vice pavilion master of the Star Pavilion? The threatening, murderous intent woke Jian Ruxiong up from his daze. One could imagine how he was feeling at the moment. The person he had spent so much effort to hunt down was the vice pavilion master of the Star Pavilion? No wonder Mu Songhai threatened to destroy Jian Xian with such a crime. If he had known that Shui Yu was the vice pavilion master of the Star Pavilion, he would not have arrested him on such a large scale. Instead, he would have arrested him secretly. However, it was too late for regret. What he needed to do now was to extinguish Mu Songhai's anger. He hurriedly said, Pavilion Master, please calm down. We didn't see Shui Yu. After he escaped, we don't know where he went. Shut up! Mu Songhai interrupted him mercilessly. I don't care if you have caught him or not. Bring him to me in 3 days. Jian Ruxiong was furious. The Star Pavilion was too arrogant. However, what was even more arrogant was that Mu Songhai pointed to the sky and said coldly, Remember, you must bring him to me unharmed. If he is injured, I will kill one of your peak masters. If you bring his body back, I will destroy the entire Jian Xian faction. A ray of 10-colored divine light shot out from his fingertip, piercing through the roof and into the sky. Then, the divine light scattered into thousands of rays, falling from the sky like arrows. In an instant, the Twin Star Island, which was already filled with screams, was filled with thousands of terrified screams. The strange thing was, after the screams, the Twin Star Island that was like a purgatory became quiet. Jian Ruxiong raised his eyebrows and quickly flashed out of the hall. He glanced around and could not help but be shocked and angry. The people of Jian Xian who had just entered the city and started a massacre were all pierced by a divine light. Their souls were shattered and their vitality dissipated. None of the elite disciples of the 1,000-sword pavilion survived. Among them, the 8th peak master was also pierced through the top of his head. A powerful soul escaped from his body, which was covered in cracks. He teleported toward Jian Ruxiong in fear and begged, Sword Master, save me. Jian Ruxiong flashed over and grabbed his soul. But halfway, a remnant divine light fell from the sky again. Puff, like dust, the 8th peak master's soul was destroyed on the spot, leaving not a trace behind. Jian Ruxiong angrily turned his head and stared at the motionless Mu Songhai in the hall. Monstrous, killing intent surged in his heart. Remember, you only have 3 days. If you don't see me in 3 days, I will personally come to the Jian Xian faction and slaughter your entire sect. Clang! The giant door that Jian Ruxiong kicked open closed again, sealing the hall. Jian Ruxiong clenched his fists, his heart bleeding. That was a peak master, not an ordinary disciple. He wanted to resist, but the royal dragon sovereign's sword had been lost. Everything had deviated from his original plan. Jian Xian was no match for the Star Pavilion. He clenched his teeth so hard that they creaked. A low and gloomy growl came from his throat. Star Pavilion, just you wait! All members of the Jian Xian faction, listen to my order. Find Shui Yu alive. Don't hurt him, Jian Ruxiong ordered gloomily. The people of the Jian Xian faction had yet to recover from the bloody massacre of 1,000 people. Hearing Jian Ruxiong's completely different order, they could not help but be stunned. Are you all deaf? Hurry up and go! Jian Ruxiong snorted angrily. Only then did the people of the Jian Xian faction retreat like the tide, blindly looking for Su Yu. In the hall of the Shui family, Shui Yuntian, Bai Walan, Lu Zhongtian, and Murong Feng looked like they were sitting upright, but in fact they were sweating profusely. They were so stiff that they could not move. They had been discussing the plan of mutual destruction, but who would have thought Mu Songhai would suddenly appear? A supreme existence of this level made them extremely terrified. Even though they knew he was here to help them, they still felt uneasy. You don't have to be so reserved. Mu Songhai smiled faintly. Her attitude was very cordial, but everyone knew it was because of Shui Yu. Thank you, Cabinet Master, for saving us. We will never forget it. Shui Yuntian and the others stood up to thank him. Mu Songhai smiled. It was nothing. You don't have to be so polite. In the future, why don't you move to a place near the Star Pavilion? With their situation, Mu Songhai was still here. What if they left? The Jian Xian faction had countless methods to secretly suppress and make things difficult for them. Hearing that, everyone present was pleasantly surprised. They had long wanted to get rid of the Jian Xian's control. If they stayed near the Star Pavilion, it would be the same as being under the jurisdiction of the Star Pavilion. This was their dream. We are willing to serve the Star Pavilion with all our strength. The few of them were overjoyed. Bai Hualan, Lu Zhongtian, and Murong Feng all looked at Shui Yuntian with envious and jealous gazes. The Star Pavilion's deputy pavilion master, Shui Yuntian, had really given birth to an earth-shattering son. It was only because of him that the 4 great families could completely get rid of the Jian Xian faction. Only Shui Yuntian himself felt slightly bitter. He also hoped that it was his son. Unfortunately, how could a small Shui family cultivate such a person? Rumble! Suddenly, the hall trembled slightly. To be exact, the entire Twin Star Island trembled as if it had received a strong impact. Earthquake! Bai Hualan said in surprise. My island is located in a volcanic area. It's not unusual for earthquakes to happen often. Shui Yuntian frowned. Earthquake? When did Twin Star Island ever have an earthquake? This tremor is a bit unusual. He was about to ask for Mu Songhai's opinion, but he saw Mu Songhai staring southwest with a surprised expression. 8 billion miles away, what is that place? Mu Songhai's expression froze. Shui Yuntian said a place with a complicated expression, Demon Strait. Everyone in the Shui family was familiar with this place. Such a strong fluctuation of divine power. Mu Songhai said solemnly, there seems to be more than 10,000 deities. 2 of them are faintly emitting the power of chaos. What? The power of chaos? That was the unique power that only the divine warriors of heaven and earth possessed. Mu Songhai said doubtfully, you guys stay here, I'll go take a look. After saying that, he teleported and disappeared between heaven and earth. The strange phenomenon in the Demon Strait couldn't be hidden from Jian Ruxiong. His face was solemn. More than 10,000 divine power, there were more than 10,000 cave world masters gathered in one place, and there were even traces of divine warriors of heaven and earth. As the master of the sword pavilion, how could he ignore such a huge movement? The two of them rushed over and arrived at the Demon Strait in less than half an hour. When he saw the scene in front of him, Mu Songhai, who thought he had extraordinary experience, was also surprised. The Demon Strait, which used to be as dark as ink, was now extremely dazzling under the sea. It was like a blazing sun rising from the bottom of the sea. As strong as the two of them were, they couldn't look directly at the 10,000 divine lights. What is that? Jian Ruxiong was shocked. He thought it was a gathering of strange cave world masters, but now it seemed that it wasn't the case. A powerful and extraordinary thing was born at the bottom of the sea. Mu Songhai's eyes widened, and his face was full of shock and confusion. Whoosh, the sea began to shake, creating giant waves that were hundreds of feet high. The 10,000 divine lights slowly approached the surface of the sea. Mu Songhai's expression was vigilant. He slowly retreated, keeping a sufficient distance, and stared at the dazzling sun without blinking. In the giant waves, a corner of the incomparably huge divine light finally appeared on the surface of the sea. Mu Songhai used all his power to barely see what it was. It turned out to be two incomparably huge divine shadows. Divine Dharma idol? Mu Songhai was shocked. Divine Dharma idols weren't strange. What was strange was that the two divine Dharma idols were so magnificent that they were comparable to the divine Dharma idols of overlords. Chapter 1634. Could it be that someone with the same Tao has made a breakthrough? Mu Songhai was surprised, but her eyes flickered back and forth between the two divine Taos. But what's going on with the two divine Taos? They are different from mortal fairies. A few mortal fairies may be able to cultivate multiple Taos at the same time, but overlords can only choose one divine Tao to break through. How is it possible to cultivate two divine Taos? Mu Songhai was shocked. However, what happened next made her and Jian Ruxiong petrified. When the two divine Taos completely rose from the sea, soon after, 10,000 godly Dharma idols appeared. All the Dharma images formed hand seals in unison and unleashed the mysterious seals. They surrounded the multicolored divine egg in the center and slowly floated up like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. On the top of the egg, there was an extremely mysterious oil lamp floating. No matter how dazzling the light was, the oil lamp still emitted a soft light and was not drowned out. In Mu Songhai's eyes, it was as if 10,000 gods were respectfully welcoming the birth of their king. Mu Songhai stared at the scene. She didn't know why, but some distant and unfamiliar memories entered her mind. She seemed to have read about this scene in some ancient book. When her eyes moved to the oil lamp, Mu Songhai was shocked. She finally remembered what it was. But because of this, she was even more shocked. Her body trembled slightly and she said in disbelief, "That oil lamp is the god of all gods, the symbol of the Tao God." Tao God? Jian Ruxiong's body trembled violently. His eyes were full of shock. Tao God was a legendary existence. Rumor had it that there was a mountain that was born in the absolute beginning realm. It was the first mountain in the absolute beginning realm, the mountain of 10,000 mountains. It contained the purest essence of the absolute beginning realm. There were 10 stone embryos in the mountain that were nourished by the sacred mountain. Every trillion years, a stone embryo would give birth to a living being. The living being born was called the Son of Heaven. The Son of Heaven and Earth, the Lord of all things. They were born proficient in 10,000 divine Taos, and their magic power was boundless. The newly born Son of Heaven had the cultivation of an overlord. Together with the 10,000 divine Taos, they could even fight against the divine Taos. Since the birth of the absolute beginning realm, 9 trillion years had passed. 9 heavenly sons were born on the sacred mountain. Without exception, the birth of every son of heaven was accompanied by tens of thousands of deities. There was an oil lamp above their heads that burned everything in the world and melted them into Genesis chi. The scene described was exactly the same as the one in front of him. Jian Ruxiong's throat felt like it was blocked, and he struggled to spit out 4 words. Son of Heaven is born. Mu Songhai also fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The legendary Son of Heaven? After being shocked for a long time, Mu Songhai gradually realized that something was wrong. This is not the holy mountain. Where is the Son of Heaven? Besides, the Son of Heaven was born from a stone fetus. This egg is not like a stone fetus. After pondering for a long time, Mu Songhai's eyes flashed with excitement, so much so that his whole body trembled. Apart from the Son of Heaven, there is another kind of person who can reach the God of Gods. Mu Songhai stared at the colored egg greedily. Jian Ruxiong's mind exploded as he thought of another type of person. The sacred mountain nurtured the Son of Heaven, and the great beginning realm nurtured countless lives. The common people were as numerous as Taowu, but in terms of talent, they were far inferior to the Son of Heaven. But in the end, there were an extremely small number of living beings that possessed extraordinary natural talent that broke through the shackles of the innate realm and surpassed all living beings in the world to attain the Tao God realm. This kind of person was known as the holy mortal body. As the name suggested, with the body of a mortal, one defied the heavens and became a saint, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Son of Heaven. The stone-birth Son of Heaven, the holy mortal body. The former was innate, while the latter was acquired. Similarly, both were legends, the 2 great legends of the great beginning realm. Although the stone-birth Son of Heaven was amazing, the holy mortal body was also rare and wonderful. Since the birth of the great beginning realm, the holy mortal body had only been born to less than 10,000 people. Spread out over every trillion years, it was equivalent to one appearing every billion years. Without great opportunities, it was impossible to be in the same generation as the holy mortal body. However, Mu Songhai and Jian Ruxiong were not only in the same generation as the holy mortal body, but they had also witnessed the birth of a holy mortal body. A feeling of dying without regrets emerged in the hearts of the 2 of them. The colored egg flew to the 9 heavens in the welcome of the 10,000 deities. The entire Jianxian ocean could see the strange blazing sun, shining in the eyes of every living being. The world was witnessing it, and the world was waiting quietly. A roar of thunder suddenly descended. In the sky above Su Yu's head, it was as if someone had opened up a huge hole. Blood-red chains slowly descended from the cave entrance. Chains of the Great Path rules. However, chains were usually as black as ink. This section was blood-red. Mu Songhai's body trembled uncontrollably, excited and frightened. It's the Great Path of Absolute Beginning. The first Great Path rules that were born at the beginning of the Great Beginning realm. All of the great Tao laws were derived from this blood-red chain. It represented the beginning of the rules, the head of all order. Unless someone broke through the shackles of the divine warriors of heaven and earth and reached another realm that heaven and earth could not tolerate, the great path of absolute beginning would never appear. Among the living beings of the great beginning realm, only a few could witness the great path of absolute beginning in their lifetime. Today, however, they witnessed its arrival. Jian Ruxiong trembled deeply. The great path of absolute beginning must be the foundation of heaven and earth. Whether one can become a divine path depends on whether one can bear the great path of absolute beginning. At this time, sensing the blood-red chain descending from the sky, the 10,000 deities looked up at the same time. Their hands formed seals even faster, their mouths chanting mysterious incantations. For a moment, the divine chant resounded, passing through the stars and the sky. Accompanied by the divine chant, gorgeous flowers fell, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning appeared, and the 4 seasons changed like illusions. All kinds of divine paths appeared at the same time. Thunder path, fire path, ice path, invisibility path. Mu Songhai looked at them one by one and couldn't help but chant. However, there were too many divine paths to count. At this moment, a vast and ethereal heavenly sound that resembled the sound of a great bell rang out from the egg. Ignite the divine path! With a light shout, the divine chant of the 10,000 deities became even louder. Wisps of flames burst out of the peaceful oil lamp and fell on the bodies of the Dharma idols. In an instant, the 10,000 deities were ignited. The magnificence of this scene stunned all the living beings. Igniting the divine path was the only way for a mortal fairy to break through to become a cave world venerable. However, it was unprecedented to ignite 10,000 divine paths at the same time. The divine chant became even louder, shaking the heavens and the earth, and shaking the boundless universe. When it fell into the ears of every living being, it was indescribably mysterious, as if they were touching the true meaning of the divine path. The 10,000 deities burned, and all of them turned into 9-colored energy. Absolute beginning chi. It was the first wisp of energy that was born when the world was created, and it evolved everything. A 10,000 deities only gave birth to a wisp of absolute beginning chi. The absolute beginning chi that was born from 10,000 deities couldn't be measured with numbers. The 10,000 deities burned, and 10,000 fist-sized absolute beginning chi surrounded the colorful egg. 2 of them were especially huge, like mountains. Accompanied by a soundless roar, the blood-red chain smashed down like a bolt of lightning. A absolute beginning chi met it, but it was instantly destroyed by the red chain. The shattered absolute beginning chi was absorbed by the chain. The chain continued to smash down, as if nothing had happened. The second absolute beginning chi met it, but it was also smashed and absorbed. Until the third, the fourth, the fifth, tens, hundreds, thousands of absolute beginning chi flew toward the falling chain like moths to a flame. However, under the chain, the absolute beginning chi was extremely weak, and it was easily smashed and absorbed. When the 8,000 absolute beginning chi was smashed, the speed of the chain's falling speed was only reduced by 10%. Mu Songhai and Jian Ruxiong were extremely nervous, as if they were the ones bearing the absolute beginning great path. Igniting 8,000 divine paths only reduced the speed of the chain's falling speed by 10%. If it were an ordinary person, they would have died under the absolute beginning great path. The chain was only 100 million miles away from the egg, and it would reach it in 10 breaths' time. With the speed of the chain's falling speed, even a divine warrior would die. Sensing danger, the remaining 1,998 streams of alpha origin chi dashed forward. 1 breath later, hundreds of absolute beginning chi were instantly smashed by the chain. 2 breaths later, hundreds of absolute beginning chi were smashed again. 3 breaths later, hundreds of absolute beginning chi were smashed again. 4 breaths later, 5 breaths later. On the 8th breath, all 1,998 streams of primordial chi were destroyed. The chain's falling speed had become negligible. At this moment, the chain only needed 2 breaths' time to crush the egg. However, the 2 mountainous alpha origin chi finally moved. Bang! The blood-red chain smashed into one of the absolute beginning chi, and its unstoppable momentum was greatly reduced. When the chain smashed through the entire mountain, it had used up an entire breath's worth of time. When it smashed into the second absolute beginning chi, its momentum was further reduced, and it slowly came to a stop. Finally, with a soft pop, the last mountain of absolute beginning chi was smashed through and absorbed. But the chain had completely stopped. It was less than 3 inches from Su Yu's head. Seeing this scene, countless living beings silently heaved a sigh of relief. Mu Songhai was beyond excited. He had succeeded. This divine mortal body had ignited the path of 10,000 gods and carried the great path of absolute beginning. According to ancient records, the great path of absolute beginning would leave a mark of absolute beginning within the body of the divine mortal body. A divine path had been born. However, a scene completely different from what they had imagined occurred. The blood-red chain did not leave any mark. Instead, it suddenly, abruptly smashed down. Its momentum was 10 times faster than before. Crack. The colorful egg was covered in cracks, and it looked like it was about to shatter. Mu Songhai was stunned, unable to comprehend the scene before him. How could this be? It had already carried the great path of absolute beginning, why would there be a second time? However, what made Mu Songhai's expression even more tense were the cracks around the egg. The divine mortal body surpasses the divine path. If the fetus is broken, the saint will perish. The egg is a fetus. If the egg is broken, then the saint will also perish. Mu Songhai was extremely nervous. Could it be that the great path of absolute beginning did not allow this divine mortal body to become a divine path, and wanted to erase him from the world? Why was this happening? Was this divine mortal body not tolerated by the great path? Or was it not tolerated by the great path? The great path was fair. The great path was fair to every living being. The great path of absolute beginning, as the ancestor of 10,000 paths, was even more so. Why was it only unfair to this sacred body of mortal fetus?